that will be reporting into this panel on every other month. Now we have there, as Howard acknowledged Mark Tracy for the work he has done. At the outset, it was this started at Epoch when we had I would say, a riveting debate about MSME financing when Donovan was saying, but David, you will fund my employee and lend him the money to buy a car, but you won't lend lend money to my business. Why is that? You know why? Anybody can answer, I guess? It's easier to do, right? But David needed data also. The banks need data to analyze. So therefore, how do we work together to prepare ourselves so that we can turn this around quickly, right? So Hugh Duncan also was on board early in the day, along with Mark Tracy, and designing the program. And then it took on a great Scotiabank dedicated resources to the program in Craig Mayer and Yvette Anderson, and I'd like to acknowledge them because they have done a tremendous amount of work in that regard. Claudine Tracy from former DBJ, so she understands the SME and ecosystem very well. Althea Walters, Roxanne Linton from FHC. Roxanne has participated and supported us. I think Gillian Hyde from Jane Small Business. Jane Small Business has been a trailblazer in the area, and I should really acknowledge them because they have been in this for a long time, and Jane has really impacted small business in Jamaica. Alok Jan from, is it formerly of PwC? Alok? Yeah, Alok has been very supportive of this engagement. Divya from PwC also. And Shani, Duncan Faulkner, Shani is here also. She heads JMB Small and Medium Enterprise Resource Center. And we have all worked together to try and pull this all together. Then we have Melanie Williams from the Financial Inclusion Council from the BOJ. And we have Oral Shaw from MICAF. Nevada Poe, who we will see in a minute, and Brenda Barnaby, Intelligent, a young progressives company, Janine Chin, and Helen DeCosta. I just have to acknowledge them, okay? So these are the people that have been driving this program and pulling it all together. Nevada Poe will be the main facilitator, and he's going to describe to you the program after Manayard gets a chance to talk, right? BA Philosophy and Economics from Amherst College, MBA Harvard, investment banker, Goldman Sachs partner, BCG, venture investor, critical thinker. He actually volunteers at Campion to teach our children critical thinking, you know. Independent consultant. But what Nevada does well is he can take complex challenges and break it down into bite-sized things and deliverables such that we can, and he was able to take the massive work done by Research and Insights, the former Jamaica House Fellows, to be able to pull it together and to design the 10-point system that we're going to be working through as a team, right? And I know I'm over time and I need to step down right now. But at the end of the day, what do we want? We want equipped, aware, and empowered SMEs. We want greater capital and resource allocated to the segment. But that comes through partnership, everybody taking responsibility. More knowledgeable and effective stakeholders, BPOs, BDOs, as this environment is very dynamic, how do we change our models accordingly? More seamless and effective system. So two of the areas that we're working on is like fast turnaround time for loans. That's one of the areas that we're working on today. And Craig Mayer has done a lot of work in that regard, and Lysandra will be facilitating that area. I want to thank Lysandra Rickards also because she has been giving us good guidance in this area from the Branson Center. Thank you, Lysandra. So that's what we're all about. It's about partnership. It's about making it happen. This is my shirt today. Just do it. You understand what I'm saying? So we just do it. We're going to do the work. This is not just about talking and making big speech. It's about doing the work. Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Keith. Just some apologies here from the leader of the opposition. And Mr. Wickham McNeil, Dr. Wickham McNeil. They have to run out now, but certainly the stage has been set by David and Keith. Keith, you gave us a good mouthful there. And I know persons have been wondering if they should stay after lunch, if there'll be meaningful discussion. And in fact, that's where the real work starts, because that's where we really get together to partner to start making the change. Because we're looking for more equipped, empowered SMEs, greater resource allotted to MSMEs, more knowledgeable and effective stakeholders, and easy and seamless and effective ecosystem. But we're going to need government support for this to happen. And we certainly have the Manayard, former Minister of Finance and MSME graduate himself, now Minister of Industry, Commerce, Agriculture, and Fisheries. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause for the Honorable Audley Shaw.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Maybe I should just say all protocol observed, because I have to admit to you right now that I have 3 graduations today, all in my constituency, and the first one starts at 11 o'clock. But I want to say that you don't have to worry, because my speech won't be long, because Keith Duncan already gave most of my speech. Thank you very much, Keith. But I have to, however, acknowledge our principals who are here from the public sector in particular. And of course, we have the head of the Exim Bank is here, Jamaica Business Development Company is here, very good, our Minister of State in my ministry, the executive head of the Economic Growth Council, Senator Auburn Hill, my good friend from the IMF. Nice to see you, Mr. Longan. And of course, head of the Development Bank of Jamaica. And to all our bankers, the head of the PSOJ and the head of the Small Business Association. I want to say to you that Keith, having given my written speech, I can now say what I want to say, right? Before I come in Manayard style, right, Keith? But I have to tell you, and ladies and gentlemen, I want to say how pleased I am to see such a large turnout of people for this event. Because this symbolizes the significance and the game-changing potential of this initiative. And I think, and I don't want you to think that when I give a sense of history, that I'm being political. I don't want you to think I'm being political. But I have to give a perspective and line it up to where we are now. It's important. So we understand the perspective and understand that we can't afford to go back to where we have come from. It is absolutely important. The context is very simple. In Jamaica's history, in the 1960s, we were one of the fastest growing economies in the world. We were growing at 6% per year. Singapore came to look at our model because they were impressed. So Lee Kuan Yew came from Singapore. You want to know what we were doing here? Well, he went back to Singapore, set up the development bank based on the model of the Jamaica Development Bank. Today, Singapore's per capita income is $60,000 US. Israel also looked at our model. Israel, surrounded by deserts and enemies, their per capita income today is $40,000 United States dollars. And we are less than $6,000 United States dollars in per capita income. So where have we gone wrong? And this is the context within which this initiative is so absolutely and fundamentally important. In 1970, the economy in Jamaica grew in 1 year by 11.9%. I rounded it off at 12% the other day, and somebody would call the radio and call me a liar. $11.9% in 1 year. When we bequeath government, and I'm sorry Peter has gone, but when we bequeathed government in 1972, after that decade, the first decade of independence, growing at 6%, the economy in that year, although we left it in February, for that full year, the economy grew by 9.2%. Momentum. Then in the 70s, we then went into a new thing never before known in Jamaica's history called negative growth. And we had 6 consecutive years of -0 growth, going as high as -6.7%. Then in the 1980s, this history is important. Many of you are too young to know this history unless you read it. But in 1980s now, when I joined government, first to promote investment with the Jamaica National Investment Promotion Limited, went to New York, head of the overseas operations, all of that. Mr. Siaga, of blessed memory, was the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. And it was under him that the economy grew by the 11.9%. Came back, rebuilding took place. We promoted investment aggressively. You know what happened? By 1987, the economy grew in that year by 8%. That was the highest growth we had achieved since the 1972 year of growth of 9.2%. So we came back to 8% growth. And then when we handed over government in 1989 and 1990, you know what the growth was? 7% in 89 and 6.3% in 1990. And a gentleman, Mr. McDonald, writing in the newspapers 2 weeks ago, said that Mr. Siaga left the economy the same, worse than when he inherited it in 1980. Mr. McDonald, you need to write an apology to the people of Jamaica. It is important that we are guided by these things, because let me say it to you now, as I come to the 90s, because I'm going through the whole period. In the 1990s, we had an average economic growth, average interest rates of 54% for the decade of the 1990s. I lost several businesses in that period, Keith. I became entrepreneurial because I entered active politics in 1986. I lost a hardware store. I lost a quarry and block factory. I lost a gas station. You borrow money at 12 to 15%, which was already too high, and then the banks keep sending you 50%, 40%, 80%, penalties on overdraft, 120%. That is history, it is factual, and I hope I don't make anybody vexed, but it's the truth. Because that is the context within which we developed a financial sector that, instead of servicing genuine entrepreneurial potential, they were laughing all the way in the banks at these high interest rates. They were wealthy, but the country was poor. You see where we're coming from? And you see why, if I'm a little bit emotional as to where we are today, I want you to understand that I've lived through all of this. And when I was Minister of Finance in 2007, I'll never forget that seminal speech I gave in 2009. I said, if I have to haul the financial sector kicking and screaming into single-digit interest rates, I will. And today, we are in the realm of single-digit interest rates. Today, we have established a junior stock exchange. I had the honor and privilege of doing that. supported by Don Webby, who was my Minister of State at the time. And we realized that establishing a junior stock exchange would be part of the network of systems to encourage people to get into the formal economy. And to get into the formal economy without having to pay extortionary interest rates. The junior stock exchange is among the reasons why the Jamaica Stock Exchange is now one of the fastest growing stock exchanges in the world. And Mr. Longing, I'm not attacking you here now, but when I became minister again in 2016, I had to rescue the junior stock exchange from being closed down. By the end of March of that year, I became minister. My first official act was to keep it open. Why was it being closed? We were told the IMF said it should be closed. I asked the representative of the IMF at the time. He says, well, they think it's far too generous. 0 tax on profits for 5 years, 50% tax on profits for the next 5 years. They think it's far too generous. I said, but there are other countries and states in the world that do it. He said, but they can afford it. And I said, oh, so we must stay in a state of perpetual poverty because we can't afford it. Anyway, we don't have time for me to tell you all of my story. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write a book. That's what I'm going to do. So here is how I'm going to wrap up. What you are doing here, it is so significant, right? That playbook that you put down there, Keith, right? Access to finance, the facilitation group, government, private sector, getting the thing granular and convincing our small businesses it is time for you to get transparent and formal. Write a business plan. Know your markets, know your opportunities, know your potential. Train your staff, because the greatest asset you have in your business is a human asset. Train them to be productive. And then we must do other things, yes. I've discussed it with the Minister of Finance already. Maybe it's time now for another stock exchange, a micro stock exchange, a nano stock exchange, where more people can feel that if one of the routes is low interest loan, another route is equity financing. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really inspired by this initiative, and I want to congratulate the Bankers Association, all the private sector, all of you. I want to congratulate you on this spirit of initiative and enterprise. My mother taught me to read the Bible, and one of the passages that really inspires me when I look at what is happening here, look at where we are coming from, look at how we have gone into this horrible interest rate regime that destroyed initiative and enterprise, and look at where we are now. In the book of Job, it says, for there is hope of a tree, if it be cut down, it will sprout again. And from the tender branch thereof, it shall not cease. With your initiative, your enterprise, Jamaica is sprouting again and will continue to sprout. God bless you and thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Shaw. The tree is indeed sprouting again, and we are certainly looking forward to that book. So we have heard from the PSOJ, from the Jamaica Bankers Association, from EPAC, and we've certainly heard from the minister and the government's perspective. And it is now time for the signing of the Declaration of Intent, because we're not just words, we're going to be action. So I am inviting at this time the stakeholder organizations, Minister Green is here from the Ministry of Industry, Commerce, Agriculture and Fisheries. Minister Green. The Jamaica Business Development Corporation, the MSME Alliance, Jamaica Bankers Association, Jamaica Association of Microfinancing, Jamaica Microfinancing Association, the Bank of Jamaica, and we just ask all of you to move to the center there for the signing, the Jamaica Cooperative Credit Union League, Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, Small Business Association of Jamaica, Jamaica Chamber of Commerce, and the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association. So everybody gonna sign today. And the declaration of intent that is being signed reads as follows. And since it's on this lovely parchment, I will start by saying, hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. We, the undersigned, understand that for small and medium enterprises to grow, they need affordable, easy to navigate access to finance and skills training. The ecosystem has to cost effectively build out the required capacity to ensure SME access to finance and skills in a user-friendly way. The interested financial institutions must build in the necessary structures to serve the segment profitably and sustainably. This may require some FIs to change their mindset around SMEs, expanding beyond traditional financial products and services and rethinking ways of doing business. The SMEs need to adjust their mindset and avail themselves of the requisite training to upgrade their business skills and begin to conduct their business affairs in more formal and transparent ways, which will lower the costs to serve while increasing the products and services available to them. The government, the respective regulators, and the various trade bodies must facilitate the movement towards a better ecosystem for all, providing clear guidance for improvement while bridging the gaps as needed until the ecosystem can sustain itself. We will lean on the expertise and support of the multilateral organizations to ensure our success in this endeavor. As the ecosystem develops, we would expect to see increased capital allocation from the financial institutions based on their own risk appetites and a greater proportion of SMEs formalized, trained, and growing. In the interest of Jamaica's national development, we, the undersigned, commit to doing everything in our power to ensure that we create the healthy ecosystem necessary for small and medium enterprises to grow. Here endeth the reading. So please, give a round of applause to all our stakeholder organizations for their declaring the intent to truly make Jamaica grow. And just a reminder of the stakeholder associations, we have the Ministry of Industry, Commerce, Agriculture and Fisheries, the Jamaica Business Development Corporation, and we can clap them while we go on, the MSME Alliance, the Jamaica Bankers Association, Exim Bank, Jamaica Association of Microfinancing, Jamaica Microfinancing Association, the Bank of Jamaica, Jamaica Cooperative Credit Union League, the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, Small Business Association of Jamaica, Jamaica Chamber of Commerce, and Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association. Let us clap them again. Okay. Can I ask the representatives of the stakeholder associations that to just come forward, because of course we have to take on a picture so we can remember. Has David Noel signed yet? Many of us are excited to see that signature on the documents, approval documents. Yes. So we're going to have a photo opportunity with our stakeholder organizations, and I would just invite now members of our first panel to arrange themselves. The Honorable Floyd Green, Minister of State in MICAF, Shorvell Johnson, CEO of Sagicor Bank, Donovan Wignall, President of the MSME Alliance, Adriana Lavallée, Chief of Operations, Inter-American Development Bank, Melanie Williams, National Financial Inclusion Coordinator. So ladies and gentlemen, this is a very important moment in our history, and I just ask that we applaud the organizations, because this is the start of something new. It's good that the debate has already started, even in where we are positioned for the photo. So ladies and gentlemen, we'll now welcome our first panel. And the discussion is around what's going to change. So asking the members of the first panel to come forward. I think some of them are being mic'd. Ladies and gentlemen, in our first panel discussion, what's going to change, we'll have the Honorable Floyd Green, Minister of State in MICAF, and he will be speaking of the importance of the SMEs to the economy. We're also going to have the CEO of Sagicor Bank, Shorvell Johnson, and she's speaking to the bankers being ready to engage. We have Donovan Wignall, President of the MSME Alliance, And Donovan is speaking to the MSMEs being better prepared. We also have the Chief of Operations of the Inter-American Development Bank. Welcome, Adriano. You can come up. And Adriana is going to be speaking to the Inter-American Development Bank being ready to provide financial and technical support for a better SME ecosystem. We also have Melanie Williams, and we've been hearing about this national financial inclusion. Very important for us to understand what this is all about. And she's the National Financial Inclusion Coordinator at PSOJ. And PSOJ is ready to create a more enabling regulatory environment. We also have the addition, we have our IMF resident representative, Constant Lonken. Constant, I'm not going to say your last name because I'm going to get it wrong. So I'm going to stop there, okay? So Constant actually had to change his flight arrangements so that he could be with us for a few minutes to speak on the IMF's perspective. So Constant, welcome. Could we have a cordless mic for Constant, please? So welcoming all of our panelists. Honorable Floyd Green, please give him a round of applause. Minister Green, oh, you want to sit down so far from me? Mid want you sit down right here, so. Huh? You can, they gave you numbers. Oh, so whatever which is so far from me. Adriano, you got 5. Is Donovan ready? Donovan, please come forward. And Melanie. Melanie's on her way up. Okay. So while we wait for Melanie, could we also just have an extra cordless mic for Constant? So ladies and gentlemen, this is where the discussions begin. After this particular panel, we will have a break. This panel will also come with a question and answer section. Do I see Gariel in the audience? Gariel Ferguson, you had a lot to say to me this morning, so I expect a lot of questions from you. We also have an audience on Facebook Live, so we will be getting questions not just from the room, but from Facebook Live, the wonders of technology. Welcome to Melanie. So ladies and gentlemen, a huge part of today's event is that we're not going to just be talking in using financial terms that most of us don't understand, but we're going to really be breaking down and speaking in ordinary language so that everybody leaves here with a perspective and an understanding of what this event is all about. So Minister Green, yes. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Minister Green, you are in fact responsible for MSMEs in MyCAF. And what I'd love to hear from you is, given the macroeconomic factors, because we're having stabilization, inflation is under control, we have a floating currency regime. What do you expect from a government perspective to be seeing on the micro level in regard to our MSMEs?
Thank you, and I really want to commend all the partners on embarking on what I think is a really important initiative. I think I'll answer twofold. Clearly, part of our responsibility as government is to ensure that we set the policy framework and help create an enabling environment for our small, medium, micro enterprises to really flourish, to prosper, and to grow. We have set about to do that in an earnest fashion, and much more in relation to action and less in relation to talk. So one of the first things that we embarked upon doing as a new government is updating our MSME policy. And in fact, in 2018, we would have passed a new MSME and entrepreneurship policy, which really outlines the vision and comes with an implementation plan. And we set about doing that by taking a stakeholder-based approach. So we did have mostly all the entities represented here on our stakeholder consultation team that helped us craft the policy. But we decided that now that the policy has been crafted and we have a 5-year implementation plan, not to disband that stakeholder team, but in fact to turn them into an implementation task force. Because in Jamaica, the truth is we've had a history of doing policy, talking the talk, but failing miserably on the implementation of same. And part of those things means direct focus on MSMEs. So for the first time in our ministry, we have a unit that is focused on our micro, small, and medium enterprise sector. And that unit came to fruition in 2016. So now that we have the policy, that we have the unit, we now have set about to remove some of the barriers that would have stopped our small businesses on the ground from, one, formalizing, and from really taking advantage of the opportunities. And Minister Shaw and some of the speakers have mentioned some of those. So we've removed the minimum business tax, which was a clear indicator in our policy framework that that is something that needs to be taken away. We would have moved the threshold for GCT. So one, to ensure that more people are coming to the formal sector, but really to free up capital so that more of our businesses can really invest, one, in their personnel and invest in growing their businesses. So now that we've set the policy framework, I think on the micro level, what we want to see is, one, more of our entrepreneurs with those business ideas using the facilities that we have. So using the JBDC, coming forward to allow us to transform that idea into a solid business plan and allow us to develop that capacity. So we really want to see that. And as we go on, I will speak a little bit more about some of the financing options that we will have, that we want to see on the micro level, more of our businesses taking advantage of.
Okay, thanks a lot, Minister. And Constance, since we have you, you also have a mic. From an IMF perspective, you've been a part of seeing Jamaica through quite a bit of change. Where do you see us now, and where do you see the wins in the future for us?
Yes, I must say that I'm very, very glad to be here. And, this is an initiative by the private sector for the private sector. I think this speaks loud to where Jamaica has come now that the macro stability is fairly entrenched, as David mentioned earlier. I think we're now moving into the micro territory, right? So I think it's fair to say that macroeconomic stability is one precondition to growth. Now that that part of the reform is entrenched, I think it's good to see that there are a lot of initiatives to tackle the micro bit. We've always long acknowledged at the IMF that access to finance is one of the major key impediments to growth in Jamaica. And we actually have a study, which we did in 2017, which shows that if credit constraints were to be relaxed in Jamaica, GDP could be 35% higher. So you will move to an equilibrium where GDP is 35% lower. So it's something that we've long acknowledged, and I'm glad to see that we have an initiative that speaks precisely to that. Maybe I would say just one word on the incentives.
Sure.
I think Minister Shaw mentioned that in the context of the junior stock exchange. The reason why we're not necessarily overwhelmed or very enthusiastic as a general principle about tax incentives is that generally they don't level the playing field for all for all participants in the economy. And sometimes incentives lead to misallocation of resources in many economies. And of course, there is always the price tag. I think debt to GDP in Jamaica, although it has come down tremendously, unprecedented, from 147% of GDP to now 95, 96% of GDP, is still very high. I mean, it's, Jamaica is not out of the wood by any stretch of imagination. Obviously, progress is very commendable, and we're glad to see that now that the government has started crowding in the private sector. It used to be the case that the government was borrowing all the resources in the economy. And as the Prime Minister Allness recently said, the government has gone on borrowing diet. So now the funds are available, and how to, harness those resources to fund the private sector is certainly something that we've seen as key going forward. So I'm very glad to be here, and I hope, I really love this, little flyer on the board. For those who cannot read it, ideas are easy, implementation is hard. So I really look forward to seeing a consistent implementation of this initiative. Thank you and congratulations for it.
Yes. Thanks a lot, Constant. So moving from Constance, ideas are easy, implementation is hard. Adriano, I'd love you to jump in at this point to speak to us about the role of the Inter-American Development Bank in the process. And ideas are easy, implementation is hard, but you would have had lessons from other jurisdictions. So I'd love you to speak of the role of the IADB, but also some of the lessons from the other jurisdictions on implementation.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Constance, because I think you set the stage very well. IDB has been in Jamaica for 50 years, so we have been part of the process. We've lived through all of the historical discussion that Minister Shaw mentioned earlier. We've been here, and we've seen how the macro context is already stable. Now it's time to start looking at how we can shift the conversation, because if you speak with everybody in the street, everybody knows debt to GDP ratio. Everybody can talk about debt to GDP ratio, and we're focusing on reduction of debt. But what about the growth piece? That part of the equation is the piece that was missing. So I'm very happy to be here, because that means that we're ready. This conversation is pivotal, it's crucial for the going forward. It's the beginning, and it's like that title says, it's not going to be easy, but it's the beginning. So I would, before I start, I would like to say, please, when you continue in the conversations, don't think within the box. Don't think with the current constraints. It's great that we have the Banker Association involved, but think about what's happening in the world out of Jamaica. Fintech is really disrupting the sector. There's a lot of companies out there that are delivering services that are developed directly with the customers in mind. We had a study that mapped around more than 700 fintech companies in the region, and they're really disrupting the way we do business. So let's not think only of the traditional stakeholders. Jamaica has a lot of talent. There's a lot of youth that is being trained in technology, coding. Let's not miss that opportunity. Let's not think in the constraints of the current framework, but let's be really bold and think differently in what we want to see, and not what we have and how we can make it happen. So with that said, we've seen that the growth of private sector and SMEs in Jamaica has remained constantly flat. And why is that? Because there's very low productivity. There's total factor productivity has remained 1.6 since the year 2000. And we see that is because companies are not investing enough in innovation. I would like to invite private sector in Jamaica to move from efficiency-driven. Efficiency-driven was incentive to remain debt low. Let's move from efficiency-driven to innovation-driven. That will be my starting point, and I'll leave it like that.
Okay. So moving from efficiency-driven to innovation-driven. And for many of us, we're listening, we're hearing about the macroeconomic factors, the microeconomic factors, and we're asking ourselves, as business people, so what does this mean for me? What does this mean for my relationship with my banker? And of course, we have Shorville Johnson, our very energetic CEO from Sagicor Bank, and the banks have said, we are ready to engage. Shorville, earlier Keith commended the efforts of your bank, Sagicor, in regard to small, medium-sized enterprises. Can you tell us a little bit about the efforts that you have made to engage SMEs?
All right, morning everybody. I thought I didn't have to speak at all this morning because David did my job, so did Keith, and then Minister came up with his manor yard style and he covered everything. But just to say, from Sagicor Bank's perspective, and I grew up with small businesses, so I understand the pain. And maybe that is why I'm in banking, actually. So we have always been looking out, the buzzword is financial inclusion. What is it that we can do differently? So last year we came up with Swipe, which is a mobile machine that allows small businesses to be able to access cash. And we also came up with a My Cash card, which allows people to shop online without having to go through all the processes. So we are essentially looking for areas that make life seamless for other persons, but even more importantly, we established a relationship with JBDC. But I think it's not about Sagicor Bank, it's about the Jamaica Bankers Association and what we are doing now to re-engage. And we're now at the stage, where we're all working together because we understand totally that for our economy to grow, the small businesses have to grow, and we have to help them to grow. So that is our mandate, and we've had these discussions over and over again, and I see all my peers in the other bank smiling because I'm saying the right thing, but that is what it is. We are engaging everybody, and we have been asking for tiered KYC, doing things differently so that we can onboard people. So we are opening that aspect to allow this change to occur. What we will ask and what we will need is that you have to trust us as well. So I don't know how we're going to do that today, but trust is a huge factor in business, right? So we can't have somebody who we're trying to help, and as bankers, this happens all the time. You're trying to help somebody through the process, and they're hiding some of the information. So today has to be the day when we stop hiding that information. And as you say in Jamaica, just level with we now, level with we. Tell us exactly what is going on. Or if we agree that every month these monies must come into the account, don't send it to another bank and take the money. Because at the end of the day, and David said it this morning, it's not the bank's money. It's the depositors who are some of the same people in this room. It's their money, and we have to protect that as well, right? So we are ready. We stand ready. We're all working together. We're at different stages, but we're all working together, and we're happy to be here because we will make it work. And that includes coming up with new products, new ways of doing stuff, but it has to be, it's not a one-sided approach. We all have to work together.
So this is really a relationship.
It is.
Yeah, clap, Charvel. So Charvel has raised the issue of trust because this is a relationship. So we want that transparency. We're putting everything on the table for this marriage. So if you have false nails and a weave, we want to know because we want to put everything on the table. Now, Donovan, when you hear from Charvel, and we know that Charvel speaks very well and is very charming, can we believe what the bankers are saying? What have been some of your members' frustrations? What is coming from your members with these various changes? Tell us a little bit about the MSME side of the story.
Well, Rochelle and Charvel, I must say I disagree with a couple of the things you say. One thing is that the treatment of MSMEs as one homogeneous group is always a mistake. There are MSMEs who are ready, MSMEs that have relationship with your bank, have sent all their monies through your bank, but yet still they are not treated with the type of relationship that sees them being, a customer for a very long time, which whenever a loan application is put in, you're run through the rigors, you're given the runaround, you're asked for every single document that you can throw at them. The forms are long and onerous. I mean, it's just a difficult time. Contrast that to when you need a car loan. I get a car loan within a week. I started on the 1st of December. All the paperwork are in. I'm an MSME, so I'm borrowing in the name of the company. And everything went through within a week. I mean, the same bank, my bank.
It was a nice car.
And it was a nice car, yes. I got the loan quickly, and no issues because the car guaranteed itself, right? But I'm a customer of your bank. You know me for years. I've repaid all the loans you have given me. So why is it that if I'm borrowing money to expand my company, to retool, why do you give me such a hard time? When the video came out, everybody would have seen the video. Quite a few people started sending emails, which I forwarded to the relevant people. I want to read one email. I'm not going to call the name of the banks that the person went to, but I want to read the email, if you'll allow me, Rochelle.
Sure.
And this experience of this particular person can be summed up with the experiences, as experience of most MSMEs, good ones, that go to the banks. And it goes like this. The lady says, and is a female entrepreneur as well. Hi, Mr. Wignall. As discussed this afternoon, please see the following experiences. Would greatly appreciate your help in moving forward. I went to the bank for a manufacturing small loan of equipment purchase for $10 million. The business plan was submitted with financial paid for by me. That person paid for the business plan. Was told the loan was too big for a small company. That's what the first bank told them. After much discussion, at the end of the day, the interest amount to be paid was 10.5%, taking into consideration all the factors, not to mention the collateral needed, house, mortgage, monies on deposit, etc. I was also told that I do not qualify for a tourism loan. This person is manufacturing for the tourism loan. At 5%, as I would have to be working in the tourism industry for 2 years. My next step was at that bank again, another bank, who sent me to a credit union. After adding up all the requirements by both, I would have to come up with at least $2 million to cover both fees and credit union and that bank fees, with an 8.5% payment on the loan. I still can't understand why a bank will charge me a fee to lend me money. Just add it to the interest rates.
Mm-hmm.
The equipment I need is for manufacturing and producing for the tourism industry and local stores with a potential for the Caribbean islands. Hotels do not give contract. They order as they see fit. I really don't get to see the effort being made to make funds available to MSMEs. There's also no understanding of the industry. The people who are sitting behind the desk and making decisions need to be placed in the shoes of running or starting up their own business. I currently make tablecloths, napkins, hotel robes, and operating from home. I'm adding a new line that I have done extensive market research on and would want to purchase this vital machinery to do so. I have since dropped my request to $6 million, and it's still difficult. How is retooling so hard for getting a 100% finance? Or how is retooling so hard versus getting a 100% financing for a car costing $16 million? 100%. I trust my above experiences of obtaining a loan will help in making the process easier for us who would like to retool our businesses. I've gotten several of these letters from people wanting to purchase entire businesses that are profitable. One business is profitable at $51 million a month. That person wanted a $400 million loan. It's not so MSME, but got the runaround. All the papers were provided. All the financials were provided. This is a good MSME. Okay. But yet still, they go through those problems.
Yeah.
And,
Thanks very much for that, Donovan, because I think you really have set the stage. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we can see, today is a day that we're really going to talk up the things. Mm-hmm. Because if we really are going to be partners, we have to put everything on the table. David, I see you wincing in the front, taking notes. The bankers, though, will speak of some of the onerous responsibilities that come from the regulators. And we do have our regulator among us, the National Financial Inclusion Coordinator, Melanie Williams. And Melanie, some of us want to understand, what is this National Financial Inclusion Policy? What is it all about? What's the purpose? And what has so far been done through the National Inclusion Group to move us forward? Because we heard Chauvel speaking of graded KYC. We heard Keith speaking earlier about movable assets. What has really been done? And are the responsibilities on the banks truly onerous that they need to now really pass on to their customers to make sure they're meeting their requirements?
Thank you, Rochelle, for that. Good morning, everyone. I want to acknowledge the work of PSOJ as well as Jamaica Bankers Association. This is phenomenal. We have been partnering with the JBA and PSOJ for over 2 years, but this is a culmination of that. And it's because of the work done by Mr. Duncan and Mr. Noel. JBA entirely have stepped into the space. Most importantly, financial inclusion is about financial empowerment. So what is it really? It's about both promoting greater access to financial services, but also usage. And for usage, you need to design products. So in the audience, we see among the attendees, for want of a better word, or team members on the Financial Inclusion Network. The regulatory environment. BOJ, like the JBA, has stepped into the modern world in large part because we have not only been looking at the financial sector reform, but looking at how we create a regulatory space that actually meets the needs of this new economy. In fact, I'll just highlight one example that was mentioned earlier this morning by Mr. Duncan, and that's a standard of sound practice on provisioning. It's a very long name. Let me read it to you. I had to get the full name to update. Right. The standard of sound practice on problem asset management, provisioning requirements, and accounting for expected credit losses. Very long name to simply say that these are the new principles that we have articulated to the industry for managing the credit adjudication process. And that's in the context of having a Credit Reporting Act. That is in the context of BOJ having had the benefit through MICAF, actually, Minister Green, and I really need to, forgive my colloquial expression, big up the MSME unit, because if it wasn't for Mr. Shaw, Oral Shaw, Karen Hilton, we at BOJ would not have had the opportunity to have that type of stakeholder consultation with you and with the IFC, and we would not have created new regulations that really dovetail very nicely with SIPA, which is what you heard Mr. Duncan speak to. Now, SIPA, the Security Interest in Personal Property Act, is part of the portfolio responsibility of MICAF, and it's very important because it's now moving to movable collateral. So having put out the rule book, the new rule book, the question is, with greater liquidity in the banks, what are our commercial banks doing to respond to the new rule book, to the new game? Are you still playing checkers when you need to be playing chess? And in the audience as well, we have other representatives. We see representatives of JAMFA and JAMFIN, which are the microfinance institutions. And we also have representatives, I saw Mr. Robin Levy of the Jamaica Cooperative Credit Union League. Now, what does that mean? We have in the landscape different types of financial institutions, some which are more nimble than others, and some which have a different business model. But the opportunity presented by this forum is for the banks to say, we're ready to adapt because the economy has changed. And the banks have the power. They are the big lions, for want of a better term, on the savannah, and they can actually make this happen. So what I am hearing today is, okay, we are willing to change. But let us not negate that apart from the deposit-taking institutions, the commercial banks, PSOJ also has representatives of other financial institutions that are also there to meet the needs of the population and MSMEs, especially that first M, micro. So going back to the point that Donovan made, we can't treat each MSME as if it is one collective, and that's the benefit of the work done by MICAF and the MSME thematic office. Micro institutions or micro enterprises have very different needs from those which are small, from those which are medium-sized. And when you're looking at really financing for the working capital needs, we have to understand the market. And as I mentioned that, I just want to flag something else in terms of the regulatory environment in the financial inclusion context. The Credit Reporting Act, and of course we have representatives from our credit bureaus here. The more data our credit information providers give to our credit bureaus, as well as pull, allows for a better credit profile to be created of an enterprise. And it reduces the pain point of the entrepreneur now engaging with the financial institution. And I would encourage all of the financial institutions not only use a credit report as if it were a threshold requirement, something to use whether or not someone qualifies for a loan, but really now consider using that credit report as a mechanism to price the loan. We really have to change our thinking. And that's what financial inclusion is all about. Now, you asked where we are with financial inclusion. So again, the benefit of this forum is accountability, and I love that slide. Ideas are easy, implementation is hard. The government of Jamaica had launched a national financial inclusion strategy in 2017, March 2017. This is now 2019. I pulled out 13 of the action items which relate to MSME, finance, as well as to creating the supporting infrastructure. We've had movement on all. And the movement has been driven by institutions like the Development Bank of Jamaica, been driven by MSME, the MSME thematic office in MICAF, by BOJ, by the company's office. So the public sector entities are doing it, but for true implementation with the private sector to respond. Because remember, the legal framework is a rule book, but to create the market, that's where the business comes into place. So I hope that answers some of your concerns.
Yes, thanks a lot, Melanie. Chauvel, you have heard from the MSMEs, the National Inclusion Policy Group has said much movement has been made on the regulatory landscape. Do you agree that this movement has been significant enough where the banks are concerned? And do you think the banks themselves are adapting to this regulatory change?
I think it's work in progress. It's not 100% there. We were at a meeting at BOJ up to, I think, a week ago, and there are still things that are on the table that we have to get fleshed out. Are we pushing hard to get it done? Yes, we are, right? But it's not going to happen overnight. But I think one of the things that came up, which I have to point out as well, there are different MSMEs at different levels, and there are different institutions that can help them as they go through the process, right? So you might have a JBDC that can help at one stage, and maybe at that stage they might not be ready for the banks, but you have different levels. So sometimes it might be good to look at the choices that are there if the banks are not at that stage. However, I will reiterate that we are moving in the process to help. I heard Donovan earlier, and he was reading everything about all the MSMEs and the headaches that they're having. Yet, I can say, from Sagicor's perspective, you'd have seen our ads with women in business. So there are some people who are getting through, there are some who are not. So it means that enough persons are still not getting the funding that they need. And it is obvious because Jamaica is not growing in the way that it should. So we being here at the table today means that we as bankers are ready to take off the ties. You saw David up here earlier with no tie. We're taking off the high heel shoes. We're bringing things down to the basics, and we're here to help. We're not looking, yesterday was the past. Today is a new day. Today is a brand new day. And with that new day, we have to look on the opportunities that may exist. So yes, there might have been stuff that we didn't do right, but it wasn't for everybody, because there are some small businesses who got loans. There are some of them that I'm in their factory every week or every other month talking to them about the next step, right? So there are some people who are getting through and some who are not. But we want more people to get into that net. So with the regulatory changes that we are pushing for, with the BOJ, who is our regulator, and the BOJ has now taken on a risk-based approach, right? So as the bankers, we have to take on a risk-based approach to whoever we are lending depositors monies to. Because if you as depositors come and we cannot give you back your money, that is a big deal, right? But we need information. We need cooperation, and we will figure out how, one, if we can't do something to you, we're not going to wait 10 months to tell you. right? We're going to let you know within a week or within a day. We will be sticking to our service level agreements, which I'm sure during this period, Keith, we will decide what those will be. For the things that we'll need, we're going to decide what are the things we'll need in order to give you a loan, right? And we're going to make it easier for that. So, you know, I would want, Moderator Rochelle, that we look on how we can move forward. The pain has been there, and we've spoken about the pain. The banks have taken their beating, but we are here today. And I know for a fact that from Sagicor's perspective, we have been pounding the pavements and we've been there. I've seen Jen there, we've been working with JBDC, I've seen First Global, and the other banks are also putting things in place. So since we are down the wicket, let's stop beating us up today. Let's see how we can move forward and look on the ways that we can run together to make Jamaica a first world country, because we're holding ourselves back.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Chauvel. Melanie, I see you reacting to Chauvel's
if I
comments.
just make, and I congratulate you, I need to say that, because this forum has highlighted something which I expressed to Mr. Duncan. It's about us now placing the MSME as a consumer at the center of the economy.
Absolutely.
So it's, yes, BOJ does prudential supervision, but much discussion has been happening around how we can actually really empower the consumer, which includes the micro, the small, and the medium-sized enterprise. And again, I need to really big up two institutions. DBJ, I see Paul right at front. Paul, the work you are doing with FETA, amazing. And then we also have the Inter-American Development Bank. Jamaica, I need to really emphasize this, Jamaica actually now has a National Financial Literacy Action Plan, which was supported by the IDB. Now, what does that mean? You will hear discussions about the blue economy, the orange economy, the green economy. Where we are in a space is that I would encourage JBA, I know Jamaica Cooperative Credit Union League is the vanguard of financial literacy, but I would encourage JBA to do more of that type of work. The FSC is not here, but again, the FSC, the Consumer Affairs Commission, the Fair Trading Commission, two of which fall under my CAF. If we're going to empower our MSMEs, we need to understand the different categories and the different sectors within which they operate, and actually tell them as financial institutions what we need from them in simple language. The
Chauvel,
complicated documents have got to be revised. Sorry.
okay. Because you said the debate is starting already.
Can I just
Chauvel,
say, and I don't see Miss Valerie here, but they had something on JBDC, had a session the other day on the orange economy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as bankers, we had to go in there and talk the things, right? So we weren't there having those conversations. So we recognize what is orange, blue, and all those colors, and we have been working with them. Because, you know, one of the things I said, because the orange economy, we're talking about the actors and the creative people in entertainment for those persons who don't know. And, you know, somebody spoke about, you know, they got up in the morning, they had a dream, and and they eventually reached to a bank. And they said, this is what they want to do. And I had to say, listen, a dream at 4 o'clock in the morning with no plan behind it, right? And no thought as to why you're going to quit your job because you're creative and this is the way to go. That's not all. So you need the hand holding. You know, you need somebody to hold you through the process.
yes. Minister Green, so you've heard the commentary. You see that we are taking steps to move forward. From your perspective in the ministry and the policies that you've put in place, what do you think needs to happen going forward to really open this ecosystem?
Yeah. So I think we have done a, a fairly good job of setting up framework and setting up overarching ecosystem. But there's still a lot that needs to be done from the government perspective, and then I'll come to a little bit of the banks. But Chauvel, I'm not going to beat up on.
Back is broad.
Back is broad.
I think, without a doubt, we still have much more to do to ensure that it's easier to do business in Jamaica. It's still very difficult for those who want to move from informality to formality. So we're working now with the Companies Office to make that process, just registering a business, has to be easier. The concept of going filing documents, having to go back with problems, having to go back again and again. These are some of the things that entrepreneurs have raised with me as things that we have to treat with. So part of what we're trying to do is to ensure that by the end of this month, companies will be able to, persons will be able to completely register their business online without having to go into the actual company's office. And I think that will go a far way in making it easier. I'm going a bit further because I'm very cognizant of how often these discussions happen in urban Jamaica and leave out the entrepreneur in rural Jamaica. And I want to say to Keith and the PSOJ team and the bankers and EPOC that I hope that in some of these workshops, we're moving outside of Kingston. And when we say outside of Kingston, not just Montego Bay, because it's easy to say we're outside of Kingston, we're Gamo Bay. Clearly I'm biased, but St. Elizabeth is a wonderful place for us to come with a discussion of this nature, especially if you're looking to get our people who are in agribusiness. So one of the things that we're going to be doing with this company's office rollout is ensure that we have kiosks in various tax offices around the country where you can go in and register using the kiosks. So we're going to be rolling out 12 of them across Jamaica. So those are some of the things that we're trying to get done. We now have online a search platform. If you don't know hard work of the MSME unit or Sean, that team, you can go online at the Mycroft website and we have a search tool for MSMEs. And it can give you basically all the information in one place about bank offerings, who is offering loans, at what interest rates, what are the various entities in the ministry and across government that can help in really scaling up your company. And again, you've heard about the JBDC and the work that they have done. Part of what we have to do as a government is expand the reach of the JBDC. Excellent team there. But again, a lot of the entrepreneurs still are unaware and don't have access because you find, especially as a small business, you plow all your money into growing the business. So even to access some of the workshop services, we have to bring it to the people. And that's a big thing that you'll be seeing us doing. So we'll be rolling out some SBDCs. We have one in St. Thomas that we're going to launch, and we want to get them right across Jamaica. A couple more things. I sat with some of MSMEs when I just came in as minister, because one of the things that Minister Shaw asked was to focus on this area. And we've heard the cry about space and about not being able to scale up because of a lack of space. Again, great ideas that start in your home, on the veranda, and then you're looking for low-cost space, and it's not there. So we want to set up some incubator spaces. We have one now on Marcus Garvey Drive, tremendously oversubscribed. I think this is another opportunity key for us to partner. How can, with the private sector, pool resources with government, find some spaces, working with the banks, find some spaces that our small companies can come into at low cost and expand. Again, right across the globe, we've seen those models that have worked. We want to set up at least 4 of those regional incubators. I know that I've spoken it here. I know that it will happen with the help of the private sector. The last thing is why we have been brought here and the conversation about access to capital. I think largely, especially from the BOJ perspective and from Mycroft's perspective, with the passing of the Personal Interest in Security Interest in Personal Property Act, that was a massive step. Now that we've sent out the directions, the banks have to adjust their mindset. That's quite frankly what has to happen. The reality, even in our ministry, we have said to our bank, who has done a brilliant job, the Exim Bank, of trying to work through some of the nuances with our micro, medium enterprise space, that we have to do more. So we, from the government perspective, we're now unveiling a new facility. We're seeking to go to 600 million. We're going to start with 400 million that we're going to give to the Exim Bank to online into the micro, medium, small enterprise sector, largely focusing on our manufacturers. And I heard the cry again from the manufacturer in that email. I sat with the Manufacturers Association. They were saying that the interest rates were still too high because we were looking at, quite frankly, when we started the journey, at about 7% through the Exim Bank. I think I can now say here that based on the discussions we had with the manufacturers, based on the internal discussions with our MSME unit, we're now looking to unveil that new facility at 4.75%, which would be the lowest rate that the government has ever put into the sector. And we're doing that mostly to send a signal, one, that it can be done, but we will never have enough money as a government to lend into the sector. So the banks now have to come on board. And the fact that the government is going to 4.75, well, I'll just leave that there and float that out in the air. And I see my bankers are listening.
Thanks a lot, Minister. So Donovan, you have heard from the ministry, you've heard from the BOJ. There are lots of facilities available today. We'll hear from the Exim Bank. I see Lisa Bell in the audience. Valley Vera is here from JBDC. In terms of mindset change, it's easy for us to target the banks for the mindset change. What mindset changes need to happen with the MSMEs to make them better prepared to access these facilities and to adapt to some of these regulatory changes? What needs to happen on the MSME side? Because we hear it's a two-way street.
Well, on the MSME side, we spoke to a lot of those changes. And one of them, I think Charvel spoke about it, and myself and David Noel, even at that meeting that spawned the genesis of this. We need to change how we do business, running our cash through the accounts, being more visible, being more transparent, being more formal in how we do our businesses, have the necessary paperwork, innovate, do better business, have better business practices, set up business to grow, not just to subsist. So, I mean, with how Jamaica is now in terms of investment, in terms of growth, we're seeing a new type of MSME. One that, a lot of young people are going into business. A lot of them need the type of support spoken about by the minister with the type of seed funding and financing, etc. But, I mean, it's a matter of change. We at this particular initiative, we are now seeing that paradigm shift, that change in culture by the banks. And, it's coming out of the commitment made by, Mr. Duncan, Mr. David Noel, and the people at that meeting, and them keeping their word and putting their money where their mouth is, and putting on this particular function, which doesn't end today or whenever this ends. It continues for a year, right? So at the end of the day, new MSMEs, old MSMEs, small, large MSMEs, we are aware of what we need to do. We just need a different type of treatment, a different type of relationship with our banks. We are often spoken of as the engine of growth for the country, but we do need the fuel to make ourselves grow, to retool, to make ourselves better businesses, and that is access to finance.
Okay, thank you. So Adriana, I see you listening very intently. You would have some experience from other jurisdictions. Some of these things, some of these discussions are not new to you. In the looking forward and the role that IADB will play, what do you think is necessary, certainly from your perspective, your bank's perspective, for us to actually cause this ecosystem to come together to move forward? What can the IADB say it will provide, and what do you think is necessary?
Well, thank you. I was listening very attentive because when you asked me before what has IADB done in the past, if I tell you what we've done, it would take me too long, and I'm not here to brag. Because at the end of the day, we're here, we're partners with you, with the government of Jamaica and the private sector. We've helped passing a lot of policies that had helped Jamaica improve their doing business indicators. We've helped with the PPPs area. I mean, we've helped in a lot of sectors. But the point I'm trying to say is that we've learned a lot of lessons. And when you devise policy, Historically, what governments have done, they picked winners. And when I say picking winners means that you devise an instrument thinking of early stage only or well-established companies. And a lot of the discussion on access to finance concentrates on that segment on well-established companies. So there's a big gap in through the whole spectrum. So learning from the lessons from other jurisdictions, but most importantly, learning from what we have in Jamaica, because we've had a lot of work with Jamaica already so far. We're devising together with the Ministry of Finance and the DBJ an instrument that will help shape the ecosystem of MSMEs in Jamaica. Why? Because there's been already a lot of interventions that are not interconnected. So it's time that they're interconnected and help each other. Yeah. And let me tell you how we're doing it. And let me put my glasses to make sure I don't forget anything. The idea is to stage the whole ecosystem from startup, designing instruments that are pertinent to that segment. At startup, you cannot think of financing through a bank.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So let's have that clear. So designing the instrument with the clients in mind. And that's a big shift that we're having together with the DBJ. And I don't want to say it's IDB, it's together with DBJ and the government. Okay? From the startup, then you have the established business. And we divided the segments in three categories. You have the potential startups. For that one, our focus would be in creating sustainable pipeline on high growth potential SMEs. What we say with that is that we see that there's a lot of manufacturing, there's a lot of services, but don't miss the opportunity to really get into those high growth potential sectors. And when I talked about it, that's technology. Like I mentioned it earlier, there's a lot of knowledge in Jamaica that is not being tapped sufficiently. And if you tap into that segment, the growth will be exponential. That's what's for startups. For this one, typically you would need funding through angel investing, helping develop the idea to the prototype and to make it scalable. Mm-hmm. So when you have, then you have a startup, right? You have a well-established startup. To scale up those startups, you need to promote activities that sustain their growth. So the approach is completely different, and the instrument that we use will be different. With high growth potential SMEs that are already being established, the key is not only into being more efficient, is how to invest in productivity and innovation. If you invest in innovation, you're definitely going to spark growth in that segment. So the approach is very different depending upon the stage of where the company is, and I think the government understands that. I'm seeing that we have a lot of activities happening in the ecosystem, and we're very happy that finally we're going to have it integrated with a common vision and understanding that not every client is the same, and every instrument that is going to be designed is going to be designed with the client at the center stage. And I'm very happy to hear that that's echoed by the bankers and the associations. And we're here, we're partners, and we're happy to continue with the conversation because there's a lot of exciting activities happening. And let me just close the idea. One of the biggest roadblocks we found, or bottlenecks to SME growth, was the issue that you mentioned on mindset. We need to learn to fail, and if we fail fast, learn and move ahead. Mm-hmm. So that's something that we need to work on, right? If we're going to fail fast. Learn and grow. Good. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow, so if you're going to fail fast.
Yes.
And early. Yes. And learn and grow.
Yes.
Can I get a time check? Because I don't want us to miss the time for our question and answer. How much time do we have left? Okay, so do we have time for a few questions? Yes. So we're going to jump into the questions because this is really about the discussion. So I know your questions are burning. Don't all rush to the mic, and we have a mic in the center. Don't all rush. Garel, you might as well come forward. So we ask that when you're asking your questions, just please identify yourself, and you can direct the questions to any member of the panel.
Well, hello everyone.
Hello.
Interesting conversation so far. Very encouraging. The banks are saying about the beating up. This is your session for us to beat you up. Understand that. It's a part of the thing. 'Cause we have been beaten up for years. Right? So, it goes both ways. Anyway, a lady just said to me, it's about survivor. But moving forward, I noticed that a lot of the concern for the banks is about their depositors' money. And I think what the banks need to look at is what about their money? What about their $9 billion per quarter profits? What about that money? How about a little breaking us off a little bit of that? Take a little more risk on your money, right? Because it seems that as if the bank, their main thing is really, and it's their job to invest their depositors' money. But then they're making money, right? And if you're an entrepreneur and you have made profits, right? Part of the profits that you make is to reinvest in your business. The banks are making profits, and part of their responsibility is to use some of their money to reinvest in their business, right? And that's where we come in. And that's all I have to say. It will make a lot of some of the things easier. The lady from the IDB said it best, angel investing. You see, nobody says that. We talk about banking and traditional methods, and we have to break out of that in Jamaica. We have to, right? Somebody have to take a risk. You want the entrepreneurs to take a risk. The bank doesn't want to take a risk. Really? Can't work. All right? Good.
Charvel, any response?
His suggestion is noted.
Is noted. Charvel's back is broad. Thanks for that.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
The video was encouraging. As a matter of fact, I was excited when that video came out. The program, not so good. I don't want you, this is a partnership. Therefore, on your panels should be MSMEs. I don't want to hear from the banks much anymore because I've heard from them for the last 14 years. Okay? They're pretty. They have the heads of the banks are beautiful. They go a lot in PR, promos. Behind the PR of a bank with a MSME is zero. It's empty. There's nothing there. I got approval from a financial institution here in Jamaica, October 27th. The disbursement came to me on January 31st. It left me unprepared for Christmas, the biggest season of the year, unprepared for Valentine's Day, my bigger season of the year. It has left me in a very vulnerable position. I emailed the heads of the bank, including the chairman. I've never got a response. The banks, they don't understand SMEs because guess what? The business bankers, they sit in the office in their suit and tie. Do you think that they know what Chocolate Dreams is? They have no clue. They've never been there. So I heard the bank manager say, I visit every month and once a month. They do not know their customers. That's the first thing. You don't know. You don't know that I have 2 hotels that are waiting on me to supply them with chocolate, and I can't because you don't care. You care about the PR of your bank. And I'm about tired of the talking. Honestly, when I saw this, I was very upset. I'm tired of talking. I'm tired of speaking. I'm tired of Chocolate Dreams being a brand. We are a brand. My brand value far exceeds my small factory of 1,700 square feet. My brand is big because I have taken the risk. What risk are you taking? None. All you do is want to dress up, give us a car, and tell us that MSMEs are the growth people. We are the growth. We are hiring the people. The tax people see me in the Gleaner every day or on the TV. And the tax people hate me. And I'm not joking. I'm brown. I am brown. And they hate me because they think that I'm wealthy and that I'm not paying taxes. I cannot pay taxes because I have 23 staff. Times 4, I make 100 people survive. And therefore, sometimes I have to choose between paying a tax and paying the people to feed their damn children. And I am about tired of it.
Thank you very much.
Okay? So, next time you invite me to something where you're going to give me that blue bag full of money to go and invest in my business so I can feed the people of my country. Because I had a decision. I could have left here in 1979. And I said, no, I'm staying here. Why am I staying here? My family doesn't want me to stay. They want me to go. And I have put my family at risk for a bank who, I'm telling you, I borrowed 65 million and my collateral is valued at 145 million. Come and look at my books. So please stop beating up on MSMEs and telling us we're not prepared. You are not prepared.
Thank you very much for those comments. Yes. I see Keith moving to the mic. And this is what this session is all about. And we have the breakout sessions this afternoon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I know. So where we are in the program, right? Because the work that we have to do is exactly what you're speaking about. Is Michelle, exactly what you're speaking about. What we need to work through. What we need to work through. We are here to create the solutions. We are here to look at the 10 points in the ecosystem, right? The 10 areas that we need to work around. Fast turnaround time, knowing our clients, building the solutions, right? The product set. And I really applaud your passion, because I think you have tapped into the pain that people feel, right? And the fact is that we have to create the solutions together. We have to create the solutions together. The bankers have come to the table, microfinance is at the table, the regulators are at the table, small business associations at the table. This is work. Now, this part of the program is about engaging so that we understand where we're going. But next we have up Nevada Power, who is going to describe how we're going to do the work. This is now sitting down in 10 work streams working on the solutions. Fast turnaround time, Nevada, what you have them there?
Application process.
Easy application
they're
process.
all on the program.
They're all on the program, right? They're on the program?
Yes.
So therefore, that's where we're going to work through, and that's where we need the SMEs to sit with us now to design solutions. So the hard work is this afternoon, So when you go eat lunch, come back invigorated to do the hard work with the 10 different work streams led by independent facilitators to ensure that we are hearing you and that you guys are putting forward solutions. We're taking it on board and we're making the adjustments within the regular framework we have, and we can have frank, open discussions. So I thank you for raising it. You know what I mean? Thank you very much. We want to make a difference. This is not talk shop business. Is really making a difference in how we want to go forward. This is supposed to be the game changer, okay? You understand what I'm saying? This is not just a talk shop. We're going to do the hard work. And then we have the disruptor, Nevada Power, who is going to make all of us uncomfortable sometimes, right? So that we can really make the changes. And Gary, the whole ecosystem is created, and you have angel financing. Those are for startups, etc. There are gaps in the ecosystem. DBJ is working on those gaps in terms of venture capital funding. They have been doing the work. Is it enough? We are here to push them along. push them along, angel financing, venture capital, etc., so that startups have an opportunity. They're rolling out funds, etc. We will know more about that. But we want to be able to, we're going to roll out a website called Small Business Portal, which will direct small and medium enterprises to exactly where they belong in the ecosystem. Right? Exactly where, if I am a small guy and I'm starting up, where do I belong? I belong with angel financing. I don't go into the bank and because the bank, they don't fund startups. They fund businesses that are up and running, right? And therefore, the whole, we're going to be highlighting the entire ecosystem, where the gaps are, where it needs to be filled, and we want to work it through. So let's take this 1 year to work it through, because it's 5 workshops. This one is a launch, so you have to do the bossy thing, the glitzy thing first. I know you guys are anxious to get to work, and we are anxious to get to work also. Okay, guys?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Keith. We have time for a few more comments and questions. Remember, the work begins here today. We're drawing a line in the sand. Oh, there's a gentleman, sorry, who has actually been waiting a little bit longer. We're just going to, unless he's going to yield? No.
No, I don't think so.
Come to the, yeah.
Okay,
One, two.
Yeah, it's working. So I'm Mark Gale. I run a small business. Shoreville, I'm going to apologize in advance, but this is not going to be your morning. I'm a Sagicor Bank customer. The challenge that I had is when I was looking for an account, I asked around, I canvassed some of my friends, and Sagicor came up as number 1 recommendation, primarily because of the technology. So I went and I tried to open an account. It took me about 8 weeks. 8 weeks just to open the account, right? This is a normal business. It's actually same. I actually tried to open a checking account, but because we're new, we just registered a company a few months before. We're told we couldn't get a checking account because the way you guys do checking accounts is that they're essentially lines of credit. Because we're a new company, we don't have any credit, so therefore we can't get a checking account. Fine. So we said, all right, fine, we'll go for a savings account.
Mm-hmm.
So I got the savings account.
Yeah, man.
But it's just like the small little things that the loans are one thing, but it's also like after I feel like I'm dying by 1,000 paper cuts every week. So I have a U.S. account, for instance. I can't transfer between my Jamaican account and my U.S. account online. I have to, send an email. I can't get a business Visa debit card with my own cash so that I can spend my own cash anywhere in the world. It was easier for me to go to sit in Jamaica, register a company in the U.S., get a U.S. tax ID, get a U.S. bank account, and get a U.S. Visa business debit account from Jamaica than it was. I still don't have a Visa debit card business account with Sagicor. And I know it's not just Sagicor, so please forgive me. I have called many other banks, and I've heard the same thing, that I cannot get a Visa business debit card. Yeah. I'm not asking for credit. I mean, yes, obviously I do want credit eventually. And to be frank, I am actually one of the better ones because I am very sophisticated. I have a degree in finance. I understand accounts. We are actually a DBJ Ignite grant awardee. So I go to the bank with all these credentials. We have 2 years of financials, even though we were quote unquote informal before we were officially registered. And it still is so difficult. Yeah. So it's not just about the getting loan financing. It's about, okay, so during the whole entire 8 weeks, right, I had to give my liver, my blood type, my kidney, everything.
The good thing, for you, Mark,
one second,
because
Rochelle.
we know that this is an issue
no, man, I know,
across
but
the
just
banks.
let me finish. Just real quick. So even though all of that, and I know that this is a small thing and it can happen to anybody, but it's symptomatic of the entire problem. I gave all this information, and you guys still spell my name wrong on my online login.
Okay.
Right?
So the good thing for you, though, is we do have the president of Sagicor Bank right here, who is your banker. So, Shoreville, I know you will be in touch with Mark, spelt right.
Yes.
to rectify this? Because this is now a possibility for a brand new relationship with Mark.
I think some of the stuff, you wanted to speak, Dave? I think some of the stuff has to do with the tiered KYC that we spoke about for small businesses, and that is one of the changes that hopefully will occur in short order.
Charvet, what's the difference between KYC, opening an account in the United States and Jamaica? I do it in 2 days.
I don't want to be doing this
Yes.
like this. I don't
Because
think this
the
is a
good
fighting
thing-
match.
Yeah.
This is a healing process, and I'm not going to get into that. And
Yeah.
I find
And
that
ladies
everybody
and
wants
gentlemen-
to quarrel and whatever. We're taking it. We're taking notes of it. I'm taking notes of everything that is being said. These are some of the areas that we have to figure out how it has been.
Yeah.
I've been in commercial banking, back in commercial banking for a year. There are a lot of changes that are occurring. Maybe they're not happening fast enough, right? Maybe there are other things that are happening. Yes, we're hearing the cries of the people, and maybe there are other things surrounding those cries. But we're not going to go back and say it's because of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah,
Mark,
and
your
the
point
good
is
thing to
noted.
just point out, if you look at the second page of your program, because a big part of today is the breakout sessions, and our MSMEs are in each of the groups of the breakout sessions, because we're going to be working together to make the changes. So we have another comment.
Right. I know you banks may feel like you're being beat upon today, but if it wasn't for rock stars like, say, Nevada Poe or Keith Duncan or, you know, certain men like that who sat down under a tree and said, hey, what's going on? This is not rocket science, people. This has been going on in Jamaica forever. This is not about questioning you and beating you up. This is about having a forum where we intelligently can have a discussion, but you need also to listen to us. We have been doing this. I have never benefited, never. You can Google me, dig me up wherever you want to dig me up. I've never benefited from a bank loan. And I've been a gladiator in the business sector for over probably 30 years. I have one credit card and it's with NCB. I have no help from the bank. The banks have failed us. You need to hear it and register it and understand it. We are not bad people. We're decent people who want to live here. I have a blue passport and a house in Miami. I have choices. I choose to be here. I choose to do business under very disgusting and hard conditions. Like the rest of us, you need to listen because you're in an air-conditioned office and you look at files and you don't realize it's people with blood. Mr. Shaw, Honorable Shaw, he turned it into a political situation. No, I'm not on that today. I did not leave my business to come here to listen more of the same. I just don't do this. I don't go anywhere outside of my house and my business. You know why? Because I can't do much of this crap. Now, if we're going to be really working together, we have to do it now. Not next month, not the month after. We have to have very short-term plans that we in here feel like there's progress. It can't be just lip sync. We got to do it quickly, people. It's not rocket science. My nephew, he's 1 year younger than I am. He doesn't have a tertiary education. We come from the same lineage. And the thing is, he has a plane, he has 30 McDonald's, he has a Bentley, he has a Porsche, he lives in Palm Beach. Everything is legal. You can Google him. He's Ricky Wade. And we came from the same house. We ate the same food. The people in America took a chance on this little Jamaican boy and gave him the support he needed in his business. He's 30 McDonald's he's a franchisee. I have one store in 35 years or more. I am not able to have a chain of Sohos. You know why? Because the bank don't see me or register that in their brains that I'm a decent person who will pay back. I always pay my bills on time. I'm decent, I'm credible. Why? You don't need to go through that process. Yesterday, I took my brother to the Bank of Nova Scotia in Concert Spring, the financial center, to open a bank account because he's selling a property. no can do. The list goes on, and he's a retired engineer. He came with everything, but there had to be one thing that couldn't make it. We couldn't finish up the paperwork because it has to go to Santo Domingo, or it has to go here, or wherever. I'm over it, people. You have to listen to us too. You can't just sit up there in your pretty clothes and think it's gonna happen. You have to allow us to express what we've been feeling for years. And thanks to Nevada, thanks to Keith, thanks to all of you who took the time out and put on your suits today and came out here. But you have to give the people a rein. You cannot think that you are the leaders and whatever. We have a voice. We need to be heard. It's not about beating up on anybody. It's a discussion. Thank you.
So we actually have members of the Jamaica Bankers Association. We're grateful for Chauvel to be up here. David is down there seated nicely. But before we take another comment.
The dress up has to do with me.
Yeah, and that's what happens, Chauvel, when you look so good. Senator Hill has been burning with a comment, and I know Mr. Noel has to take some of this heat. Yes, because he has on no tie, and then we'll take one last comment.
Listen to me now. I have listened to these people, and they're absolutely right. Mm-hmm. But you know somebody who's getting away cheaply in all this? It's the government of Jamaica. Mm-hmm. The government paid 40-50%. Or allow the economy to get to a place where we pay 40-50%. Them dress-up people, they never had to go and talk to ordinary people. They sit down there and buy government paper. When I took over NCB, there were billions of dollars in government paper and very little amount of money in loans to ordinary people. Mm-hmm. So let us not let the government off. But you know something, no bankers? Take sleep and mark death. Come out of the office, and the first thing you have to do is hear Floyd talk about we in government make it easy for you to have an account set up in six, we're sixth best in the world for setting up a new business. Well, you can't set up an account. I know Mark. Mark is absolutely right. I would have recommended him anywhere. It didn't matter if I recommend him, because you have too many things on that know your client things. You have to sit down as a group of bankers and change it. It don't make sense. You can't do that anymore. And the government, whether you like Andrew Holness or not, him say, nah, borrow no more money. So bankers, you're going to have to lend your money to ordinary people out here who want to do business, like that nice China lady there. Me know.
That's so funny.
Baby, sit down. Just to make a joke after you. But I'm saying to you, I was listening to Blossom Amelia. What the last name again? Nelson, same one. You know what she said? That it's time that we set up, those of us who can, bankers who can, set up a development bank. A private one. Because I tell you the truth, right now, and I tease me, but I'm gone yet, the development bank act like development bank. They are much more risk averse than Scotia, and we know that Scotia is the most risk averse bank in Jamaica. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to take any more time, but I've been there. And I really, why I'm doing this, Mark is a friend of my son. Alex studied in Boston, as has my daughter. I begged him to go to Wall Street. I could place him anywhere he wants. He said, no, I'm not working for anybody. I'm coming back to Jamaica. Well, in about 3 years, he's here much longer than that now. In about 3 years, Alex earned 3 MBAs from the Custom Department, from the Ministry of Finance, from the Tax Department, from driving on the road with taxi and everybody. And me tell you, say, it's not easy to do business in Jamaica. But you know something, Chauvel? You and David, you're very young people. You're smart people. Keith, give Keith a big round of applause. Me say, clap him hard. Keith has been doing an amazing job in pulling this together. David is right there with him. Well, we acknowledge this. See him here? Him in the video too. But apart from that, you guys now sit down and change the KYC. It is nonsense. You don't have to get all that amount of information from people. And when people apply for a credit card, get them quickly and don't give out. You must make sure you give loans to people to run businesses, to make sure they employ people, because that's where the multiplier effect is. When you make all that billions of dollars, it doesn't multiply in the economy. I've taken up your time when you go fix the business. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Senator Hill. David, I know you studied in Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you're going to take some of the heat now.
Just want to say that we hear you. Michelle, we hear you. Everybody has spoken. Mark, we hear what you're saying. We know we can't continue how we've been continuing as banks. It's just not sustainable. We want to hear all of your stories here, because even though it's not pleasant, for me as a banker to hear how we have failed in this area, if we don't openly listen to what you have to say and don't start making changes, we're going to be having the same conversation in a few years. The reason why we can't afford to lose this opportunity, though, is because the economy is in a place now that we really can make a difference in Jamaica. Government is not borrowing, as Albin said, and he's right. We were bankers that could sit down. The government had an insatiable appetite to borrow from us. We could lend to the government, one person, with very little work, and earn a huge return. That's not the Jamaica we're in now. So it's in our own self-interest to change the way we operate, and we have to hear from you. So it's not about not hearing and not talking. It's easy for us as bankers when we're being criticized to quickly try and point out the reason why we made the mistakes of the past. But that's not what we're here for today. We're here to move forward. So after lunch, in those workshops and work streams, the same comments you're making now, please make it vigorously. And it's not just heads of banks who are here. There are many people who work in credit departments who decide on which loans to grant. They're here, sitting in the audience. There are business bankers who meet with you. They're here, or don't meet with you, or don't come out to your factories. They're here as well. And we really want to hear what challenges you have. So don't be shy about being brutally honest with us, right? Donovan isn't afraid to be brutally honest with me. Nevada is even worse sometimes about how we are lazy, stupid, short-sighted, all those adjectives. Today, we're not taking it personally. Give us the feedback, because we have to find a different way to do things. There's a long list of things that we can change. And we know we have to change and we're a part of it. But we're not going to change if we stay defensive and if you bash and say, I don't have any time for this. We have to work together. So after lunch, be open, be transparent. Let's talk about the issues. Let's talk about the frustration. And some of the things that Albin mentioned, we have all spoken about. And I won't talk about NIDS today because that will take me on another path. But there are some things we have to do as a country to really simplify how we operate. And I believe if all of the private sector combined, small and medium-sized businesses, micro businesses, large businesses, bankers, all of these agencies, if we go to the regulators and say, how we do KYC now does not work. If we go collectively to say, how you register a business or how you become farmer does not work, we have the might of the entire private sector, not an organization, the entire private sector, to get the changes that we need done. So let's be vocal, let's share. We're not being defensive. We don't like sometimes when people criticize us, but we know that if we look at ourselves and we are honest with ourselves, you're not telling us anything we don't know. And you're not telling us, we know that we have an obligation to change, and we are open to that change. So please, don't hold back. Don't be afraid to share. We want to hear from you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Just quickly, we are pretty much out of time, but we're going to take two last comments. I know Craig has been burning, and this lady right here. How much time? I have some masters.
Yes, we're going to do some.
Rochelle.
Sorry, you know what?
Rochelle?
We need to have the venting, because the clearing, and it's not for the banks or anybody to necessarily respond person by person. The thing is, many of these people have never had the chance to be heard,
Yeah.
right? So let the hearing be part of the healing.
Okay. Yes. And that's wonderful, because Nevada, we're just going to jump straight through your time. so which you are already cutting down. Craig, we're just going to hear from this lady before because she's been waiting. So we're just going to ask you to keep your comments tight so we can hear from as many people. Yeah, and the minister has a comment to make, but let's hear from this lady first, Minister. Would you yield? Oh, the minister has to yield to go.
I have to say something to Floyd very quickly, though.
Wait 1 second, Craig. Let's just hear from the minister.
No, it's thank you to
quickly.
him. It's thank you to him. He actually is one of the biggest people that's helped my business grow.
Okay.
And I actually want to say this. So Floyd actually was in charge of a program called the WEP program, right? Now, this program, unbeknownst to many people, is actually one of the most fantastic government programs out there. So I want to say, to be honest with you, the government has actually grown my business far more than the private sector bankers. Now, about 17 people that work at Intelligent, and I think 10 people have actually gone through the GWEP program. Now, what the GWEP program does, it gives me 40,000 Jamaican dollars to supplement my newly graduated students that come into my company as a salary for 6 months while I train them. So it lowers my training costs for 6 months, gives them that gestation period for me to build them up so I can actually pay them a decent salary, get into the 100K, get into the 150, whatever that is. And Floyd's application process is super easy, right? Literally, I can actually call them on the phone, write the stuff up, get them done in 2 days. They back pay, which is amazing. So if I actually get someone to start, let's say January 1st, and it doesn't get approved until January 15th, their WEP will actually back pay my employees, right? It lasts for 6 months. The only requirement is that they graduated from university in the last 2 years. I can even recruit people from other companies, bring them in there, use that as a subsidy to get them over until I train them. Now, this program is fantastic. That is the loan for my business. That's allowed me to grow, allowed me to get people in and do it very, very quickly. Now, the WEP program, the only issue that I would say is awareness. Not many people know about it, right? I just happened to be at a conference with Floyd about a year or so back, and they had a booth over there. And I just said, hey, what's this thing? We're right across from them. I said, yeah, we do WEP. We help young people get jobs. Can you talk, let's talk. They said, we have a 98% application acceptance ratio, which means that if any of you guys want this opportunity, you're most likely going to get it, right? 98% of people get accepted to it. Now, this government program, as I'm saying, it doesn't have a limit. It has, I think, like 300 or 400 people. They're expanding it, and I just want to big you up for that, Floyd, because trust me, out of all the bad stuff that people might say about the government, that thing actually works. It's grown my business very, very much. I have 17 people employed in 1 year, right? I tell them a fast-growing business. Intelligent. We're actually the ones that did the video, right? All the video that you saw that's creating all the attention, we did that, right? And the last thing I'm going to say, please, everyone, we're recording this. Make sure you vet yourself and get the thing out because it will hold the bankers accountable. We at Intelligent are also part of the process. And what I understand is that once this video goes out there, the bankers can't turn back, right? And I work with the bankers. I love them. I have a lot of the CEOs on my contact on WhatsApp, and the joke is Intelligent can't get a credit card from them yet, even though I personally know all of them now, right? And I know, Chorvel, I'm going to have the joke with you too because you're coming to do a video soon too. But that's normal, right?
1 second.
All right.
Well,
So that's it.
The minister has to leave,
Yes.
and you've made a comment. So, Floyd, we're coming to you.
Apologies, because it's the worst possible time to leave. But thankfully, Senator Alvin Hill is here, and I'm giving you a new responsibility now. But I would go a bit further. I saw on the program that you have a solutions presentation session at, well, it's 5:45, I figure, depending on how quickly you go. I'll return for that because I'm really interested in the solutions that come directly from those of you who go through the pain every single day. And I'm happy to have been here to hear some of the issues thus far. I do believe, quite frankly, in Jamaica I've said that we know the problem, we research the problem, we find a solution, then we research the problem again, then we research the problem again, then we do a glitzy thing to announce that we know the problem and we researched it. And we spend so much time on saying that we know what it is and that we've done it, and so little time on actually solving the problem, that I'm impatient to solving the problem. And I'm in a business that you don't have a lot of time, because probably this is the only forum I've heard people get more heat than my profession. Thank God for small mercies. But so I have to go. I had an 11 that I had pushed back to 11:30. So forgive me, but I will be back to hear your solutions and continue. And this is a great initiative. God bless you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Minister. We have this lady here who has been waiting for quite some time.
President, good afternoon. It's a good thing I know how to hold my 6-inch heels. As I look around in this congregation, I see wealth of people. We are Jamaican, we are strong. And what I really want to say is something kind of very painful. In 1992, my husband was brutally murdered, leaving me with 3 children, my youngest being 3 months old, and I went ahead still and adopted a teenager who was raped with a baby, so that was 5 of us. I'm an optician by profession, and that put me in a different zone. I went into sales because I just could not deal with the death of my husband and everything else. And unfortunately, just before he was murdered, he was changing his insurance policy, so he died without leaving an insurance policy. Now, you can imagine a 26-year-old with 5 children, no support at all, what that means. However, I serve an awesome God, so I went into pharmaceutical sales, and I became a guru. I have put many pharmaceutical companies on the map in Jamaica and internationally. So in 2010, I tried to do the same for myself. Went to about 150 banks. You know you don't have 150 banks in Jamaica. I traveled to 14 parishes from bank to bank. Nothing happened. They don't want to deal with startup. So what I did, I went to the first day loan people, the people who give high interest rate, and you start. Then you started and went to India, got my products branded in my own name because I believe in my country. I believe that we have a wealth of people here and we are phenomenal. No bad vibes to men, but especially women. We get things done. However, finally, in 2016, I found a bank who was willing to work with me. The interest rate was very high, but I didn't have a choice. Went ahead, got the loan. Unfortunately, because the goods from India take between 3 to 6 months, it took a little time. So I got the loan before the drugs actually came. So the loan started to be paid before the drugs came. Fist my way through and penge. Fell down within the first 6 months because the only way that that bank would give me a loan is if I mortgaged the only thing I had, which was my home. But I believe in the company and I believe in the power of God and myself, so I went ahead. Fell down, and in no time at all, the bank called in the loan. After it was a 5-year loan, I called it in to say that they were going to sell my house. Yet my sale has doubled since by 100%. And all I'm asking, work with me, help me. They don't want to. That very same bank is in here bigging up them chests, or them this and them that. Now, come on, guys. We are Jamaicans. I remember when Dr. Nigel Clark said, if you fail, don't give up, get up again. Where is the bank to help us in that capacity? We're not here to nail anybody to the cross. And Mr. Wignall, you have touched my heart because you understand what we are saying. And as a woman, one of the foundation of Jamaica, help us now. I mean, you get a credit check, and because you fall along it bad, other countries help you, right? Lift you up to that you can do something. But what we do here in Jamaica, we nail you to the cross. You can, I mean, my company have gone in such a trend that it's now developing up, and yet I can't even get a simple overdraft. And then you're telling us that we must wait, and you're doing this and you're doing that. I mean, please don't ever think that we're trying to nail you. We just want to grow. We want Jamaica to grow. We want our country to be the paradise that it really is. And if you look around here and you see the people that really makes a difference, all we need is banks that can help us. And being a single mother, when I look back what God have done, I have raised a doctor, a pilot, and a lawyer. All through God. And no bank don't help me to do that. My son has been called to the bar. Let me finish. My son has been called to the bar this month. And his pair of tip shoes me have to wear over and over because him come first. Where is the bank to step in and help us? Hold our hands. Don't only hold us when we are trillionaires. Hold us that we can walk with you, grow with you. I want to be a trillionaire that you can take my money and let other people grow. But if you don't help us in the beginning, how can we grow? What are you telling us to do? Leave our beautiful island? What are you telling us to do? Not to invest in our fellow Jamaicans? You can't do that. And it's not a matter about saying, oh, you dress up and you're pretty and everything. I think I'm gorgeous. However, you have to help us that we can help you. Let us make a better Jamaica. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we have somebody else at the mic in the back, so we'll take that comment. If we can keep our comments as concise as possible so we can hear from as many people.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Dana Ball from Bauhaus Design Studio. We design and manufacture authentic Jamaican products for the heart and home. I'm not sure how many people are from the other side of the island here today. I really appreciated the minister's comment about inclusion for rural Jamaica. I had to get up at 3 a.m. this morning to catch the Knutsford to get here in time for this meeting. And I'm a creative person, so I'm all about ideation and finding solutions. And I really like this 2:30 to 4:30 p.m. session, but I have to catch a bus back to Savlamar. And I don't think this program within itself represents inclusion for people on the other side of the island. So I would like for it to be on top of mind that Kingston is not Jamaica. I also want to talk about a return to the old-time banker. I've said this before. I'm from a family of business owners. My mother has been in business for 30 years, my uncles and aunts. And so I remember my mother always having a close relationship with her bank manager. And what she had to go through then, trust me, is not what I have to go through now, just to create. And I don't want to beat up anybody because I felt it to my heart when Michelle got up and she really expressed what I was feeling. And I have already written letters and I've expressed my anger and frustration with Exim Bank, NCB, BNS. And to be honest, I've gotten headway. My father said I should have been a lawyer because of the way that I can debate, and so I've gotten what I needed to get from the bank. But I got a very good piece of advice from my uncle Andrew Gray. He said, don't wait on the JMA or JAMPRO to help you. Oftentimes find your own solution. So I've had to do that and juggle and jump around, and I think everybody has had that experience to be able to be in this room today. And I just wanted to point out what the old-time banker used to do. It was more of a relationship where I would see the banker come to my mother's office, or he or she would, there was this level of trust. You can pick up the phone, you could talk to the person, the banker would vouch for you. And so I find that the new business bankers, they don't understand that relationship. It's not that we're coming to beg you for something, it's that you're working with us. And I think the communication within the corporation, the banking institute, should be about that. One of the best things that I got from working with Sandals Resort was a process called like sandalization. When as soon as you joined the company, it was hammered into you, customer service, customer service, customer service. And maybe that's an internal thing you need to do to kind of mind warp the business bankers to understand that they need to leave the office, yes, and not just leave the office in Kingston. And I don't want the what left people in Sav that don't know what's going on. I would like the people to come to Savlamar and to the other side of the island. So I would like more of that relationship building. Like for real, not just tell me, but for real.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrea Grant, Framework Projects, Project Management Training and Coaching. No, there are several things to talk about, but I think one of the main things for me, we talk about globalization and we talk about the fact that technology is the way of the future and the present. But it is almost impossible to set up an e-commerce website in Jamaica through the banks. In fact, it's the way of doing business now. I mean, everybody wants to be able to pay online. And so, if we talk about the growth of GDP and trying to see how we can build this nation, I think one of the things that we can do is actually try to figure out how can we facilitate e-commerce for the businesses, small businesses, and large-scale businesses as well. In fact, we give these credit cards, and actually, in essence, what we're doing is we're facilitating business overseas. In fact, look at it here. The greatest business now that's been growing is the courier services, because all of our funds are being divested to Amazon and all the large players. We're on a competitive landscape. The competition is not locally. Our competition is really on a larger scale. And if we don't facilitate that, chances are, no matter how much loans we will give, I can tell you, it might be that the GDP will not move. We will not see the growth. One of so the takeaway is we need to focus on e-commerce.
Thank you. Very powerful point. We have a lady. You can come to the mic, sir. You can, please go ahead.
Okay, I'm Vinette Notice, First Global Bank. So I'm standing with you, Chevrel and other bankers, and we're noting the feedback from the SMEs. My questions, well, I'm sorry the minister left, but the other government officials probably can assist. As we talk about space and allowing our SME to scale up and use space that, moving from their veranda and from their small spaces, what are the opportunities for some of the buildings that are not used? I grew up knowing the Jamintel building downtown. And when I pass downtown and look at that building, my heart is like, oh my God, what a waste. I mean, in those days, they never had that many cars, so parking wasn't such a huge issue. Everybody now drive. But there are still the opportunities to rationalize some of these buildings across Jamaica, not just Kingston, to create space for our SMEs to operate within. And there can be partnership with the banks and definitely with DBG to renovate and create spaces for our SMEs. That's one. To BOJ, the sound practice paper that came out in January, are there plans for meetings with the banks to operationalize that document? Because, yes, there was discussion leading up to the final paper. There was a draft before, but when the document came out in January, there were some significant changes. And don't want to lose the SME audience, but the IFRS 9, the provision in the estimated credit losses, are we going to meet to talk about this? Because we have until January 1, 2020 to implement. And there are some new concepts in there, talks about forbearance, which will definitely benefit our SME audience that are challenged with repayment. When are we going to have that discussion as bankers so we can come out with something effective for the team?
Thank you very much. Melanie, could you respond quickly to that?
Thank you so much for that question. I'm grateful. And if I may also respond to comments made by Senator Hill on KYC. So in response to your questions on the standard, yes, there will be ongoing dialogue. There's a one-year transition period. In fact, Bank of Jamaica has a regular meeting with the Jamaica Bankers Association. They call it the Bankers Committee meeting. And that's just one forum for consultation, and I'm sure there will be others. Now, in terms of administering that particular standard, that falls under the supervisory division, which is Deputy Governor Sims. So I think what you see here is an environment for us to share that information with Mr. Duncan, with the head of JBA, Mr. Noel, and set up those meetings. That's one. On the KYC, the graded KYC, let me just indicate the pain point, as articulated by Minister Green, is that we tend to take a long time to do things. So in 2017, BOJ actually created policy proposals for graded CDD requirements. That's, again, just after we launched the strategy. And this was informed by work we had done with the World Bank, informed by the National Risk Assessment, so we're aware. But even though those are proposals to inform any legislative amendments to the Proceeds of Crime Act, right now we actually issued it in June 2018, updated AML CFD guidelines. Now, I am an attorney, so I'm used to reading long documents. Your compliance officers in the banks would be used to reading long documentation too. But within those guidelines are clearly articulated factors to be considered by our regulated entities, and I mean BOJ regulated entities, when considering how to treat with the risk associated with their products your customers, and the business they do. The bottom line is that we expect that in assessing AML CFT risk, you must understand the business of your clientele. It is no longer a one-size-fits-all. So the whole environment has changed, as mentioned by Sajika. We're moving into a risk-based framework, which means it's a lot more work, it's a lot more analysis. And I think the takeaway I'm hearing from this is that while we have the CEOs who are on board, it goes back to a point that Mr. Duncan made. We need to train your frontline soldiers or your frontline staff, because they are the ones who are interfacing with your potential clients. And if they don't understand the vision of the business, ultimately they may be costing the banks an opportunity to engage. And so what you're hearing in the venting is that, okay, we hear you as a CEO and we know that you understand the vision for financial inclusion, but does your man in the actual office, the branch office, understand when you have a potential client coming forward? Or are they just using a checklist without understanding how to assess risk? And they're doing a tick box approach instead of actually assessing credit risk, assessing AML CFT risk. And the point that you made about forbearance within the 6 months, and then now everyone is now going to enforce against her home when she has doubled the profits. Are your credit officers trained to understand, especially in the context of new principles-based guidance, how to actually treat with a non-performing loan? What is your standard for that? Is it 90 days? Is it 120 days? Have you really done the work? And by you, I don't mean the CEO, because the CEOs know. In fact, probably the heads of the departments know, but it's the line staff that need to be trained. So just wanted to put that out there.
Thanks a lot, Melanie. So we have 2 more comments. Sir, introduce yourself,
Good afternoon. I'm Courtney Spence of Captured Moments Limited. Okay. What I wanted to ask here today is, where is the Minister of Education or representative for the ministry? Because honestly, I've heard you guys talking about loan and the importance of small business getting loan. But today, right, the biggest problem I believe that small business encounter is the morals and value that emanates from the society when you employ people. And that is a bigger endurance than any loan, because one can grow, right, if you would have the right team with you in order to grow. Because all the money that you would be pouring out on the SME would be just like pouring powder on a blackbird. It would go nowhere. Okay, I don't know if today's PSOJ forum came about because of the fact that for many of you, you might think that you're constrained because you're here in Jamaica to own the banks in Jamaica to lend you money. Today, if you send a good bank statement to American Express, they'll forward your credit card. Right? Recently, I wanted to tender a bid to government. And it needed a bid security, which I ran all over to all the financial institutions to get that bid security put in place. I was shocked that a lot of the bank managers that I spoke to didn't understand what a bid security was. It was until I made a call to Wayne Chen, who then pointed me to NCB, and even the NCB didn't even have an idea of what they was talking about. But I give you an example of the difference between banks. You call Citibank, Citibank returns your call. You call NCB, nobody returns your call, okay? This is Visa, our bank, and okay. No, when I went to one institution and I said to them that I needed this bid security, would you be able to assist me? They laughed at me and said, your markup is too small. Add another $3 million to it and then we can talk. I went to Credit Suisse, which I do not have any relationship, and the bid security was done. Okay? And all Citibank and NCB did was to be able to underwrite that letter of guarantee. So as I'm saying to you, you can look outside the box now as Jamaican. I listened to you as you talk about that lady and as she fought for getting her equipment financed. You have an insurance company, many insurance companies. And ironically, there's one, BCIC, who does a policy only for 2 clients, Courts and Singer, right? Which enforce the Hire Purchase Act and guarantees it, right? If you're to, as a PSOJ representative, sit with BCIC and say to them, bring this across to other importers and distributors. They too, because every single manufacturer outside there, we're willing to have their plants in small factories in Jamaica and willing to work with us, right, if we had a proper structure. I listened to someone talk about the period of the 70s and the 80s. When I was young and I went to Eldersley, you saw farmers working together, right? You saw people building houses they built together. And this was because of one topic in school, civics. In the 80s, it was taken out, okay? So today, we are getting what we're getting because of that, okay? No, I took the same person talk about the growth. The Credit Reporting Act that was promulgated in this country, they did not use none of the credit reporting company within our sphere, that's the United States. They went all the way across, right, to Europe to get a company to manage our credit reporting. So therefore, where we could use our credit reports here, right, in the US, right, and be able to gain credit, we can't because we are shut out. When the same act was promulgated, it was exclusive. It was not until the last government who changed it to allow SME to be on part of that. Okay? And today, if you listen to a lot of the small people cry, the reason for crime is because of lack of respect. That simple act could turn around this country and it is just pushed aside.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. So we have one last comment, and then we'll invite Nevada, the lead facilitator, to set the stage for the rest of the day.
Thank you very much. I have made my notes so I can be succinct. I'm Michelle Nito, owner and operator of Nita's Nest for the past 10 years. My uncle says he's proud of me because I'm the first in the family to go into business. No business training, but I was at Life at Jamaica for 19 years in sales and then marketing, and then in banking with JMMB. And before that, I served on credit union committee. And so I think I've honed quite a bit of business skills, and that has helped me so far. No, I don't want to speak about my own experience in not getting a merchant credit card yet, not getting the loan I've been trying to get for several years, but finding other solutions, because I think later on we can deal with that. However, I want to speak to the clients that I had while I was at Life at Jamaica in sales. About 50% or more of my clients were business clients, and I learned a lot at their feet. Okay, and I have gone through situations where I'm saying this because someone spoke about openness earlier, and if you really want business people to be open, you need to take account of what I know has happened. First of all, I know someone one of my clients who wanted 50,000 Jamaican dollars back in the early 80s, and the bank delayed the disbursement, and the business had to be sold, and I'm going to tell you not who bought it, but a large corporation bought it, and through that same bank. Okay, you're talking about sharing information with a bank, and then the bank has their friends and buy out the business. I'm going to speak about another client who he had insurance with me, and he applied for the loan. The loan was approved, and the disbursement did not take place. The man ended up in hospital. I looked for him at Medical Associates, and he eventually died after years of illnesses. And his situation was that the bank would not disperse the loan because somebody's wife in the bank wanted to be the one to sell the insurance, and I did not even know the man refused to buy it from that person because he already had it. And this is what has happened in the banks, okay? And I have known of other situations where people I've had $1 million insurance policy canceled because in order for them for the loan to be dispersed, they had to buy the insurance from somebody else. Now we have to cut that out. Okay, and I'm just speaking to the lives and health of business people that have been damaged because of how the banks have operated. And I'd like to dedicate this time for growth and unlocking the power of the SMEs to people like Daphne Graham, of blessed memory, who has been on PSOJ, NDF, and Small Business Association, and built all of those, helped to build all of those institutions. And I really hope that something will come of all of this in their memory. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. I think we have, so that was our last comment. Thank you very much to this panel. Thank you very much, Donovan Wignall, for leading the MSME charge. Melanie Williams of National Inclusion in the BOJ, thank you for your commentary. Thank you very much, Chauvel. Thank you for having a broad back and for your intense listening to the customers. And certainly we're looking forward to some more discussion this afternoon, because I think we really have set the stage for the openness, but more so for the solutions. Adriana, you have heard. I'm sure that Jamaica is one of the stories that you will tell and one of the lessons, and we're looking forward to what will come out of these workshops. The Honorable Floyd Green had to leave us early, but we still acknowledge him. So can we give our panel a round of applause? I think there are some gifts for our panelists. We want to acknowledge the presence of Mr. Peter Bunting, a former banker himself. So we're the photographers to take a picture.
Thank you.
Nevada, can you prepare yourself? Next on our program, we will have Nevada Poe, who is the lead facilitator for these workshops, and he will be setting the stage for what to expect in the going forward for these workshops and what to expect this afternoon. Nevada? Yeah, you want to use the podium?
Thanks to the panel. Thanks very much, Rochelle. Ace MC. It's really amazing to see all of those faces out here. And while some of that discussion probably took a little longer than we had anticipated, it's very critical that the messages get heard. I've always been a fan of what they did in South Africa, that Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And it's unfortunate that some of our government officials had to leave, because that is the thing, very much that Jamaicans want to be heard. And we are articulate, we understand the issues, we just need to be put in the appropriate setting. But I also want to say, here's the thing, and I want to thank my brother Keith for this. Everybody is here. Everybody that needs to be here to break the back on this thing is here to stay. So it will not be a situation, as in previous times, where it's a bag of talk. At the end of this day, and then the next few months, when we keep the pressure high, we will continue to try to break the back. But it's important that we create the mechanisms for all of the business to be heard. But also for the banks, the financial institutions, and the trainers to be heard. Presentation, I'll go very quickly, and then we'll go to lunch. The paralysis of the SME ecosystem, right? And how we're going to break it. And how we're going to challenge ourselves and everybody in this room to break this. The dynamic evolution of the US economy. This is interesting. 1969, the 6 biggest companies, IBM, AT&T, Eastman, Kodak, General Motors, Standard Oil. By 1999, it was Microsoft, General Electric, Cisco, Exxon, Walmart, and Intel. In 2019, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Apple, Berkshire Hathaway, Facebook. Anybody notice anything? What? Internet one, but what is? Change. This is an economy in dynamic evolution. By the way, every 10 years, I just happen to do it because I'm summarizing, every 10 years that list changes. Every 10 years, that list changes. That means there are small companies becoming medium companies, becoming large companies, replacing other large companies. From the day me born in Jamaica is the same list. Right? We never have a call name, right? So many of the same companies' names on the top for decades. And then you have a limited life choice. You graduate from school. You can either join one of the big companies or the government, which is another big company, or you start your own small company and stay small. Or you hustle a few different things, hoping that something hits, and rarely does it ever. What you can't do easily is start a business that's small and then grow. JMMB is an aberration. CariMed is an aberration. That's not the normal course. So whatever those companies did, they were fighting against the wind. We want to change it so that more people in Jamaica get an opportunity to build a legacy, to leave something, right? This is the paralysis of the Jamaican SME ecosystem that we have to change. How are we going to cross the chasm? There are three things that are critical. There's the access to finance, which, as everybody has said, is a two-sided issue. What are our financial institutions offering? What are our financial institutions doing? But also, what are SMEs doing to make themselves bankable, such that there is ongoing interest from the financial institutions for financing them? The second issue is access to business training. Understand that despite many, many courses offered, we don't often take the time to learn the necessary skills. A few months ago, I sat down with somebody who runs a very large business, and in the quiet of one evening when we were having drinks, he said to me, "Nevada, explain a balance sheet to me." Plenty of our businesses are buck up. We don't necessarily understand finance. So we also have to call ourselves to account and be okay that we don't understand. I appreciate the question because I understand. And we all have to be hold at that kind of space for each other that we can ask any kind of questions, particularly around something as complicated as finance and business. When he asked me that question, explaining the balance sheet to me, of course it occurred to me, where would he have learned it? Where? He was hustling a business all the time, growing the business, and then he threw the thing to an accountant, never asking a question. But the third piece is what I call personal accountability. Accountability to go to training. My friend Lysandra, who runs the Brands Center, will talk to you about people who start the training and don't complete it. Or people who start the training, complete it, but don't implement it. They were merely doing the training in order to get the thing. Or people who write a business plan, not to follow a business plan, but just to get the loan. So that idea of personal accountability is not only for the SMEs, but also, as we said, for the front line. Do you know your customers? Do you understand your customers? Do you know your customers' business? We talked about these numbers. There are SMEs with a loan or credit line. In Jamaica, we're at 27%. The average for the region, Caribbean, is at 44%. So we are well behind, even in what you'd consider similarly situated economies. Many of the reasons for the barriers to development: access to finance, practices of the informal sector. The informality also holds us back. The freighter taxes, political instability, corruption, electricity. Those are things that small businesses here have identified as some of the barriers to letting them grow. What's missing, of course, is the accountability. What's missing, of course, is the education, the self-education. Financial inclusion is what I call the third way. Between the choice of working for someone else or hustle and grind, what's the third way? SME experience, we've heard about it with financial institutions. Difficult to access financing. Most SMEs that are financed get their money from family, and friends. Inadequate targeted funding programs. Collateral requirements for SME much larger than for corporates, right? 200% of the loan amount, which is 60% higher than the loans to corporate. And exorbitant interest rates when you can find it. Businesses long in business, still not trusted, and have to pay the hard interest. An onerous loan application and lengthy processing time, high rejection rates, and even when approved, as we heard, the disbursement takes so long that what is the point? The financial institutions, we heard this from Chevelle about their experience with SMEs, right? The informality and the data inconsistency is frustrating, right? Yes, we understand that school fees come up in September, you had to pull someone out of the business to pay, but you should have told them. You should have told them. You need to let them understand the context. Level up, as Chevelle said, right? Manual and paper-intensive processing systems further worsen the cost to serve. And that's why sometimes your banker don't return your call. Because you are a complicated file. When Grace Kennedy come in, it's an easy file. If I have 10 years of audited financials, you look quickly, you can turn around the money fast. You are bringing your receipts. The receipts don't match what you have in the books because you have put some money under the mattress and you have to send somebody abroad to the school at school. It's hard to rectify and reconcile all of that, right? The low financial skill set we talked about, high loan delinquency rates. When you owe the bank money and I'm trying to call you and I can't find you and you're not answering call, we know about the dodge, right? Everybody know the dodge? Look on the phone, dodge. And therefore, the financial institutions rightly have also become risk-averse and refuse even to lend to some categories. Transforming the ecosystem requires disparate parties to align. Financial institutions, SMEs, regulatory bodies, business services, and training. But the good news is that everybody is here. And it may be the first time that everybody is here. And therefore, we're going to have to use this time to create the opportunity to build so that 1 year from now, we look back and we have created a set of solutions around the problems that we have already heard. Moving to solutions, no more bag of talk. Inertia has been Jamaica's worst enemy for too long on multiple fronts, right? What has happened to date? When we first came out of this project, we realized actually extensive research had already been done. Lots of workshops on this topic had already occurred. We didn't want to reinvent the wheel, and we certainly didn't want to do any more studies. The drop-off appears to be in the implementation, where it has to be with specific granular recommendations. Accountability and responsibility. One of the reasons Keith Duncan hired Intelligent is to keep the conversation in the public, keep the small business being able to talk to the regulators and stuff in a very public way and demand action, right? Things getting stalled in committees of too many cooks in the hopes that it is forgotten where we're going. We have to keep a light on this topic until the ecosystem shifts. Here is what we found. Keith alluded to this earlier. Creating a healthy ecosystem. There were 10 things that actually have to change. The first is the overall regulatory environment and making that more conducive to SMEs. You heard Melanie from Bank of Jamaica talk before about this notion of the tiered KYC. The reason it takes so long to open an account is partly because we have signed on to international treaties that say you gotta watch for terrorists. You gotta watch for money laundering. Now you're sitting at the front line, you know this 30-year-old, 40-year-old coming in, you know them father from long time. The chance of them being a terrorist is like 0. And therefore, but you have signed on to a treaty that now has to treat them like a terrorist. So that bag of form that you're filling out is because we have signed international agreements in part. Also, the arcane language of the Bank of Jamaica means that even when they make the change in the law, for it to be implemented, it takes 2, 3, 4 years because nobody can read what them say? Can we create a bridge between our regulators and our operators to make that process easier so that when the law becomes impacted, we can have fast implementation? The second issue that we found, which is a pain point, is what I call a robust number of relevant products and programs. So there are products out there, but they're often not fit for purpose. Michelle Colton talked earlier. She has a fabulous store, and most of her sales is what you call seasonal, right? It happens mostly at Christmas time. She buys stuff from abroad. Now, what happens in a seasonal business, it means you have to acquire the items before you sell them. In order for items to arrive in Jamaica by Christmas time, you have to pay for it in August. Now, you can go to a bank, but what is the bank going to ask you to do? When is the first payment due on that loan? Thank you, right? Long before you have had a sale, the bank is coming to collect their money, almost as if they did not understand what you borrowed the money for. So the idea of creating a loan that you get in September, but the first balloon payment, it can be a balloon payment, happens in January. That is a loan, what you call fit for purpose. Not just give me the loan that's in the bank and I take it, and of course I have to hide from you because I don't sell the goods yet. I have a dodge. 3, the credit adjudication and risk assessment frameworks and processes. Anybody know what credit adjudication is? Keith used it, a whole lot of people use it today. But I'm curious, and see nobody asked. Who know what credit adjudication is? Just a show of hands, show who know what credit adjudication is. All right, see? Very few of us. Very few. And one of them is Craig Mayer, who run credit at Scotia. So not even a legitimate account. You see, this is the issue. Much of the language is arcane. I'll tell you what credit adjudication is, and some of you are going to be sitting on our credit adjudication panel. What you're going to do when you go to the bank to request a loan, they look at a number of factors associated with you. So it could be, what industry are you in, right? Restaurant would be a more high-risk industry than some forms of manufacturing, right? Older could be less risky, but not too old. Older, less risky than too young. What kind of payments you have made before, your relationship with the bank, depending on what that has been, puts you positively or negatively affected. But here is what, and out of that, they give you what's called a credit adjudication score. And based on that, they decide to lend or not to lend. So here's the thing also, what we want to do as part of this process. We also want to educate the public. So I want you guys now to write this question down. When you next apply for any kind of financial support or loan, ask at the bank, what on my application is negatively affecting me in your credit adjudication process? Ask it, because you can begin to have a conversation that says, well, what can I do to mitigate that? So learn this concept of credit adjudication. All your bankers know it, you must know it too, and ask that question. One of the things we're going to do today in the solutions is to figure out, well, what are the ways in which we can make the credit adjudication process more open. The difficulty, by the way, of many of you trying to get credit cards and can't, is because the credit adjudication process is closing you down. Not instability, but the fluctuation in a business, very different than the stability of your employees, is what makes the business owner less attractive than somebody working for you, which of course is ridiculous. Because if you're out of business, those people working for you don't have jobs. And yet it is much easier for them to get a loan than you as the owner. But these are some of the weird things and the arcane things in our system that we're going to have to try and fix. David has alluded to this, the more open capital provider mindset. This is partly why the banks are here. Less risk aversion to the category. Let's meet each other. Let's keep meeting each other and assure ourselves that we're hearing on both sides. The awareness, the full awareness on products and programs that are available. The truth is, and I think the intelligent people mentioned it before, there's this GWEP program. Not a lot of people apply. And the issue is being more aware of actually what's out there, what you can take advantage of, is also critical. That's one of the deliverables out of this work, is that we're going to create a website, a one-stop shop where you can go and find the programs and find the types of loans that would be good for you. And social media, of course, absolutely critical that we keep that up. Fuller awareness. 6, simpler application process with forms and requirements. And again, much of this is around the tier YC. Another question I want you to ask your financial institutions when you sit with them, when you look at the application form, ask, what part of this is regulatory and what part of this is the financial institution of your application? Be smart. By the way, one of the things that I've discovered while doing this project, the financial institutions do not uniformly understand what the Bank of Jamaican requirements are. And people are often swearing, yes, they just say BOJ requirement, when in fact, when you ask the BOJ, they'll tell you not so. So we also want to, as part of this project, make much of the Bank of Jamaica notes and regulations transparent so that the public, when you go in, you can know, no, this not make no sense. You telling me this is regulatory when in fact it is not. The simpler application process and forms. Faster turnaround time from application to disbursement. We heard this story, right? The loan has been approved, but by the time you got the money, the reason for which the money was approved is no longer relevant. Skills, readiness, and support. We have programs out there, but the truth is, sometimes the quality is not that great, right? So one is to upgrade some of the education programs that are there. The second issue is in recognition that you as a small and medium business are often head cook, head washer, head everything. It's very hard for you to attend a training session in the middle of the day. Thank you very much for coming to today. How about training sessions at 7? How about training sessions on Sunday? How about training sessions online? That are, even if you miss it, you are recording, you can watch it at your own. So rethink the way we do training. The second issue is the naming of the training sessions. Lysandra and I have spoken about this a lot, right? Sometimes it sounds like, boy, that sounds like it's too high for me. Learning about cash flow sounds intimidating. But if I said to you, for example, if you've been running a business for years with a lot of revenue and not making any profit, you might actually come to that, because many of you would recognize that. Are you having problems getting your employees to get stuff done when they said they would? You might actually come to something like that. But if more abstractly, how to manage people, you might not attend. So there's an issue about when the courses are offered, how the courses are named, and how the course is delivered. We always have to be cognizant that we have to be culturally aware of the environment that we live in. We must start with who Jamaicans are, not who we wish them to be. We cannot pull off-the-shelf training from America and deliver it to Jamaicans. It doesn't work. We don't have that economy. We don't have that initial training, right? Even in financial literacy, one of the things about financial literacy is that we don't have math skills. We don't understand math, so we started at some base levels of under-delivery, and therefore every training has to be articulated in such a way that it can be understood. Increase in formally registered SMEs. We have to show SMEs what is the benefit of being formalized. We have never articulated that. So the only thing that in people's minds is you formalize and taxman coming after you. You formalize and people will know your business. Can anybody articulate the reasons for being formalized? Yeah. But actually, sometimes formalization is even for yourself to be able to understand your own business, about being transparent. But that is there are actually a lot of benefits to being formalized. And my hope is that those of you who are in those sessions, alert yourself to the fact that, no, actually a lot of good things can happen if I'm formalized. But that's never been articulated. All we want is run after people. And therefore, yes, the people are suspicious. The people are afraid. And yes, when you go to the bank, you're only telling half the information because you're afraid. And the last thing is lowering the SME loan delinquency rates. And much of it has to do, some of it is culture, but some of it is also that the financial institution gave you a loan that they should never have given you. The loan was not fit to purpose. And therefore, it starts from, what are you looking for? What are we able to do? And when, one of the things that Yvette from Scotia explained this to me, was that sometimes we aren't good at saving money. We're not a save culture. So when you ask me for the loan payment at the end of the month, that's harder than if you ask me to pay every week. This is what I mean by trying to understand the cultural impact of being in a place like Jamaica. This is the afternoon work. And we have deliberately put in, so the tables are going to be controversial, they're going to be difficult conversations. We've deliberately put in at every table, every breakout group, a mix of the small and medium businesses and regulators and bankers and microfinance and credit unions in order for you to work towards solutions. I don't know if we in Jamaica have ever tried something like this, where we bring everybody together at the table in order to develop the solutions. But it's going to take a lot of work, not only today, but beyond this point. The thing that we have done differently for this set of workshops than some others is that we're going to hold the platforms of support in place for a year. So long after this is over, we're going to keep coming back to conversations. So for example, and this is where there's a reason as an SME you were invited here. You were known to somebody on the panel as mouthy. You were known to somebody on the panel as loving Jamaica. You were known to somebody on the panel as willing to potentially put in the work. So when we push the banks or financial institutions to design new products, we are going to invite you in again to talk about it, to test it. Today, I told you we're designing a website. Those of you on the website panel will talk about what would you like to see on a smallbusinessportal.com so that your input is at the beginning. The solutions. That is the critical word today. We have had some of the venting, and I'm sure there'll be more, but what I want us all to focus on now is that we are all here. Don't lose this opportunity to complain about what has gone before. Use this opportunity to understand your complaints and then say, what would I like to see? Make the bankers them say them can't do it. Make the tension, it's okay to live with the tension, and we find that right equilibrium. Consider this the beginning of a process. And if 6 months from now, a year from now, we are not seeing any change, then we have failed. Exactly. 6 months. Sure. Yes. Very good. Yes. Sorry, the question back there. Yes. No, I can't hear you. Yes, yes. Yes. Yes, that is about the credit adjudication process. And one of the things that we is also part of this process, when you design a credit adjudication process and design products, we don't do a lot of what we call risk-based pricing. There are things that SMEs can access, but for the risk, the bank may charge you a slightly higher rate. So all of that is part of the process that we will work through today, and what makes for that difference. So use this day also to educate yourself and become smarter about finance and about the financial services industry. Yes.
The credit bureaus, I don't know if you've had the discussion, if anybody is here from there, because a high-risk client, all high-risk clients are not the same. I have had two high-risk clients, and one had never had a late payment in their life. Everything is paid fabulously. Another one have delinquencies up to a zoo, but they have the same grade.
Yes.
They have the same grade. So they need to revisit the algorithm as to how they calculate the risk.
Very good. Sorry, very good. Exactly the kinds of things that we want to raise here and acknowledge that that may be one of the solutions that we need to work towards.
Right, from the credit bureau, just to say that, right. My name is Craig Stephen. I'm the CEO of Credit Info Jamaica Limited, our first licensed credit bureau. It would be very difficult for two people with those different histories to have the exact same score. It's something that we would have to look into. Yeah, but it's somebody with a lot of delinquencies and somebody with no delinquencies can't have the same risk profile. So we'd have to look at that information to see if it's something where it's a misinterpretation of what is being seen. But I can tell you our models are objective, and that is virtually impossible by the way how it is currently constructed. But not to say that there aren't inaccuracies within the information that is used to feed the model. So it's usually not an issue with the model. It's usually an issue with how the data feeds into that model, which is because of the partnership with us and our financial institutions. Data is not 100% perfect, and it's a continuous ongoing process to fix and correct the source data so that the models can push out more and more accurate assessments.
By the way, one of the things that we discovered also in this process is that not all financial institutions provide the data, and therefore much of the information, as you're saying, is incomplete. So one of the things out of this, we also have to make sure that more of the financial institutions actually don't just pull the data, but also provide the data on a monthly basis or whatever, so that the credit thing is up to date. Yes.
Good morning. My name is Richard Coe. I'm one of the board members for the JMEA. And in listening to what I've heard this morning, what is apparent to me is that there's a disconnect. There's a disconnect between what we understand the banks to be earning in terms of profits and customer satisfaction. And a part of the planning today, I hope that the end result will be that there is transparency in terms of what the customer satisfaction levels are with different banks and merge that in with their profitability. If we don't do that, we're not going to see the change that we want.
By the way, you raise an interesting point, and for those of you sitting in the faster turnaround time, I'll give you an example of what some of the messed up thing is about. The banks have a thing called the SLAs, right? How well you perform on the customer basis. And one of the things they look at is how fast a loan get from application that you get the loan. Now, when you look at what the banks say, how fast you get the loan, what their SLAs are, and they compliment themselves all the time, and I was saying, they said 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And I'm looking at these lists of banks, and all of them have said this is what they do, and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. I don't know anyone it doesn't take months to get a loan. But here is the difference in the counting. When you start your count is when you have written the application and put it in. That's when you start counting. And then by the time they send you back with a whole bag of things and bag of things and bag of things, 3 months later you say, okay, I finally get this loan. Guess when the bank starts counting? When the application, everything is complete. So for that 2 months that you think you have applied, your application has not registered on their SLAs. So 6 months, a year later, they're congratulating themselves that we are good on customer service. No, you're not.
It goes back to transparency.
The transparency.
Yeah.
That's an issue. Okay, just in terms of, to continue, we're going to have lunch now. As you pass the registration table, you just have to get which breakout group you have been assigned to. And remember, the issue here, we're going to spend the afternoon coming to solutions. It's not about beat up. It's about working together and allowing the frustrations to create the solutions. Janine? Oh, sorry.
As we break for lunch, I just want to, it's Auburn Hill's birthday. He has spent the time with us, Senator Auburn Hill. And the Economic Growth Council is the CEO of the Economic Growth Council, and he has decided that he wants to sign the declaration form, so we're going to add his name, and we're going to see how we can work together with him also, right? So this is not pomp and ceremony, okay, guys? But we're getting all the stakeholders on board so we can work together to make it happen, right? So, Auburn, we have to sing happy birthday. Rochelle can sing better than me. Or Helen. No, Pastor, where the... Mr. Reverend Jackson.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Auburn. Happy birthday to you.
So we're going to have the signing of the declaration by the Economic Growth Council. The photographers?
I learned from somebody sent me a copy.
So that's a round of applause to the Economic Growth Council for jumping on board. All right, thank you very much. So ladies and gentlemen, a bit of housekeeping. We're going to leave from this room and head over to the pavilion, that's the area by the pool, for lunch. On your way back from lunch, you will stop at the registration table to collect your table number so you know which breakout session you'll be in. This room is going to be transformed for the breakout session, so we'll have tables in here. So remember, you're heading over to lunch now, and please stop to collect your table number for your breakout session. We're looking forward to some more rigorous debate in the afternoon. So please note the different areas for the breakout sessions. And we're just going to ask you to take your things with you because this room is going to be transformed. So we'll see you shortly. Please enjoy lunch. But before we go to lunch, because we are certainly going to need to invite some prayers for the continued success and also to say grace. And I'd like to welcome the Very Reverend Franklin A. Jackson.
Thank you. We bow our heads for prayer. Let us pray. God is our refuge and our strength, a very present help in time of need. Therefore we will not fear. I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help comes from the Lord, maker of heaven and earth. God of yesterday, God of today, God of all times. We thank you for the gift of land. You have given this land to us, this land where men and women of every clime and time have worked and sojourned to make Jamaica a good place. We thank you for those in governance, and so we pray for government. We thank you for the mercantile community, those who have given of ourselves to be the engine of growth and forward movement in this land. And herein, we lift up before you the private sector organization of Jamaica, all her stakeholders, and pray that you may continue to give wisdom, knowledge, and understanding as they invite stakeholders within the economic family to come together to talk around this table. We pray, mighty God, that you'd continue to give good success to all members and stakeholders as we work together to make Jamaica a place where we can do business and raise families and have success. And so we pray for this gathering and pray for those who shall continue to give of their knowledge and their wisdom and their understanding in the forward move for nation building. Bless Jamaica, land and people we love. And so as we continue in fellowship, we shall share a meal, strengthen our bodies unto your service, and make us in this land continue to give ourselves to work tirelessly, to work together, to work in love and harmony, knowing that at the end of the day, it is Jamaica, land and people we love. Hear our prayer, mighty God. Bless, preserve, and fortify, for we ask all this in the mighty name, the matchless name, the precious name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and our Savior. Amen. God bless.
Good afternoon, everyone. We actually definitely need the room to be cleared now. The hotel needs to turn around the room. Could we have everyone exit the room, please, so that we can clear the room and turn it around in an hour? Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, could you please exit the room? We need to have the room cleared now so that we can turn the room around. Thank you.